right, there we go. A little late, but we're here. Well, I'm here so far. Just a few minutes. It's like an eternity in YouTube time. Oh no, I'm super boring by myself. Are you kidding me? Might as well watch paint dry. Actually, no, Bill Nye made paint drying more interesting. Bill Nye made paint drying more interesting than me when he asked the question, does paint dry from bottom to top or top to bottom? Well, what's your answer? Mm-hmm. I told you I can't be entertaining by myself. Gotta feed off people. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're wrong. I don't know because I don't even know the answer to that. No, I did, but he just asked the question. It's just a thought experiment. There's no. I mean, I'm sure there is an answer out there, but no. It was off of one of his video. Like someone like wrote a mean tweet to Bill Nye, and he said, "Watching Bill Nye. Oh, I'd rather watch paint dry than watch another Bill Nye episode." Yeah, and then Bill Nye was kind of like, "Do you know how interesting it is to watch paint dry? Now tell me, is it dry from top to bottom or bottom to top?" And it made me kind of want to watch paint dry, to be honest, because I kind of want to know. Because I'm that type of person who just needs to know the answer to everything. I do have a question for you when you get over here, though, dealing with books. She's almost done. She'll be here in a minute, and then we can read. I guess I could read, but you won't get a British accent nor the variety of voices. I could, I guess, but it'd be really bad. There's a reason why I don't do a British accent on here. I feel like I'd offend too many people. Okay, let's see. Uh, just waiting for you. No, I was looking something up quick. Well, I guess something could do. Do we have any comments I could answer? We'll do live comment answering session. All right, let's see. While we wait for Lextron over here, let's get this going. Damn. All right. You are awesome. Who is the cat? No, Laura, you're awesome. And the cat is Jackson, aka J Action 009. Good. I know I said it live, but also thank you. Can't type tonight, but there we go. What's wrong with the pensieve? It is a magical flash drive for memories. What's wrong with the pensieve? Science. Laws of physics and all that. And yes, there is actually a video where I kind of prove myself wrong by proving the pensieve right and how it can actually function due to quantum mechanics. So I used to think there was something wrong with the pensieve. I don't think there's anything wrong anymore. And I do love the way you put it. Lol. I didn't laugh out loud. It was like a snicker. We'll do haha. I gotta look at what pensieve is. Wait, oh, I'm thinking of pensive. That's uh,
All right, I'm coming. I'm just getting my drinks together. I just need my beverage situated.
I wish I could drink my coffee black, or at least close to it. I've heard that this this is healthier. I'm assuming. As much as I hate how much places like Starbucks makes milkshakes out of their coffees, I definitely have been wanting something more sweet recently. So more often than not, I will just mix chocolate powder or cocoa mix into my coffee and call it good. I actually know a lot of people who do that. They'll mix hot chocolate into their coffee. It's not for me, but
my coworker puts maple syrup in his. Just maple syrup and nothing else.
oh yeah, I remember you told yeah. If the mic didn't pick that up, Lextron has a coworker who actually puts maple syrup in his coffee, and that for me is just ugh. I don't like it. Okay. Apparently sounds not similar from what Marvel's Nightcrawler does. Remember in the movies, he said that he has to be able to see the place that he teleports to. You might also look at what Anakin does in the movie Jumper. Anakin, okay. Hi. My mind got twisted. I have seen Jumper, but as soon as you said Anakin, my mind went straight to Star Wars.
Okay, I'm here.
It's been a while since I've seen that movie, so I couldn't really comment on it. And yeah, he does have to actually see the places in Jumper. I remember that. That's why his apartment is like postered with all these postcards and like travel magazines, so he can actually remember the places he goes. Welcome.
I made it.
All right.
I made it. Sorry, I just saw that comment that said, don't compare Littlefinger to Snape. That's an insult to Snape. Littlefinger is much worse. Ew.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's much worse.
I'll give you that one. I'll give Snape that one. Yeah, Littlefinger is much worse.
Fire and blood. Just saying, fire and blood.
Yay.
Yay.
All right.
Even though apparently I'm not representing my house today.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not. I'm sorry.
Hey, Dan, how's it going?
Finally made it to a stream. Yeah.
Just in time, too. I was just kind of killing time answering some comments while we were waiting for this lady.
Mm-hmm. I've got the chapter ready.
All right. Just going to turn this light down. My face is like washed out a little bit.
Mine is always washed out, I think.
Actually, could you turn that to
the yellowy?
Yeah, the yellowy light. Nope, not down. Switch it.
I just looked at it, now I can't see.
Subscribers only. That's so that bots don't come into the chat and just spam stuff. So that's the easiest way to do it. You have to be a subscriber for the channel for at least a minute to post in the chat. Keeps down on spam and weird people in here.
And trolls.
And trolls.
And hates.
That's what I meant by like weird people, I guess. The trolls.
So he hasn't watched any of All the Young Dudes. So this is spoilers. But we should do a recap of the last thing we've read. And I've been inundated with How Do You Live, so I'm trying to remember. Yeah, just channel subscription.
Yeah.
Not you do not have to financially contribute, no.
No. It's just subscribe to the channel.
Wasn't it Christmas? No. Lupin was going to Christmas at the Potters and was going to find out about his dad.
Yeah.
He wants to find out about his dad. That's what it is. He's on a mission to find out what the deal is with his dad.
This chapter, like the warning was that there was some talk about death or something like that.
Oh my gosh, and last time we met Peter Pettigrew's sister, Philomena.
Yes.
Yeah, and she was all like, I want to be a muggle. I don't want to be a witch. It sucks.
And she walked in on Lupin in his underwear in the bathroom.
And he was very uncomfortable.
She seemed fine with it, though.
Yeah, it did fine. Well, she looks at him like he's a little boy, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Fair.
And James Potter was swooning over her. So many things I still don't know about YouTube, despite being here for 15 years. Dude. Yeah.
We're still learning.
We are still learning, too. And I've been on YouTube since the early days of the Ultimate Showdown of Ultimate Destiny and Salad Fingers.
Oh, man, I was on before that. I was like...
That was the early days, though. Ultimate Showdown was one of, like, the first big things on YouTube.
That's true. That and, what was it? Animator versus Animation was a pretty early one.
This is the ultimate...
Ask a Ninja. Will it blend?
Of Ultimate Destiny. This one was a little bit later than that, but it was still pretty early.
Ray William Johnson, who was like Tosh.0 on YouTube.
Oh my god, Ray William Johnson, I remember him. What was the show with all the bros and they made food?
Epic Mealtime.
Epic Mealtime. Yeah. Oh my god, they made like the bacon cake or bacon lasagna.
They made bacon everything.
They did make.
There's always bacon in everything. That's
true. Fair enough. Oh, that's pretty cool. I've looked. I mean, I've checked out some of your videos. I really enjoy them.
Oh, I didn't know you uploaded these. I'll have to check them out.
Yeah, you'll have to.
You told me about the videos.
Yeah, you just haven't looked at them. I like them. So should I start?
Yeah, sure.
If only I'd done something interesting. I mean, I think they're interesting.
Yeah, I haven't watched them, so I don't know, but I mean, there's always someone interested in something.
There's an audience for everything.
Exactly.
This is true. All right. Let me see here. Is there anything else we have to recap?
I don't think so. What else really happened? Was last week when Lupin did the spell on James?
I can see
lumpy
like
elephant
3 different drinks.
Yeah, why do you have so many drinks?
I always have a million drinks.
Okay.
I just go with it.
All right.
I'm like the little girl in
I
Signs.
never
I've got
really
a million
noticed
drinks.
them.
I've always got drinks everywhere. No, Lumpy Elephant Dung was the time before that.
Okay. I don't think much interesting happened.
No, I don't really think there was a
The
lot.
last reading, so
All right, shall we?
yeah, let's go.
All right, let's go before Noelle comes on and we have to talk about the book.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Oh, me too. I know. Where is the book? Did you leave it?
Oh, I set it down in the living room.
Read your other nature play. Got some poems done in 2 chapters of HP. Oh, I like that. Nature and reading at the same time.
Yeah.
Ambiance. That's nice. All right, ready? Let's do this.
Let's go.
At the rate we're going, we'll get in 1 chapter before we have to bring in Noelle.
We started late. Maybe we can do a chapter after that.
Chapter 51. 3rd year. The Man Who Cried Wolf. Christmas Day, 1973. Remus's odd late-night conversation with Philomena had caused him to reevaluate his anxiety about girlfriends. Oh, that was what it was. He found out Sirius kissed Mary.
Oh, yeah.
And he had feelings about it, and it made him uncomfortable.
That's right. That's what happened last time. Him and Mary are kind of like feuding over Sirius.
Yeah.
He's a little jealous.
But he doesn't even know he's jealous.
He handed me the vinegar, Mary. Not
He
you.
handed me the vinegar for my fish and chips.
Enjoy your dry-ass fish and chips.
Where's everyone else? I don't know. No one's... This is kind of a lull. We don't really have too many people right now. It's okay. The 3 of us can just hang out. It's all good. Katie never shows up because it's too late for her. That I know. So she'll pop in later, but I'm not sure. People's is busy, I suppose. Anyway. His ability to comfort her had stirred no particular feelings of chivalry or affection, only a mild sense of relief that he'd got her to stop crying. He definitely had no desire to get that close to any other girl. He thought about Narcissa for the first time in a while. Remus had secretly thought Narcissa was the most beautiful girl he knew, before she dyed her hair anyway. She had a regal sharpness which appealed to him on some base level, but even she was made foolish by love. Risking her own life, in fact. The sight of Philomena sobbing in her nightie only cemented in Remus's mind the revelation that love and relationships were not worth the misery. He had enough pain in his life. Let Sirius and James work it out for themselves, but for the time being, Remus felt very intelligent for having come to this realization so early in life. He'd probably saved himself a lot of needless stress. Christmas morning was as wonderful as it had been the year before. Even Philomena perked up once she saw presents under the tree with her name on them. Remus was able to enjoy the immense satisfaction of handing out his own presents, and Sirius and the Potters were all suitably pleased and thanked him profusely. He himself received a chess set from the Potters, which was perhaps the most expensive thing Remus had ever owned, and bought just for him, not second-hand. Along with the usual assortment of sweets and practical jokes from the Marauders, it was a very good haul. Sirius looked a bit nonplussed at breakfast, as everyone else wolfed down their smoked salmon and scrambled eggs. "So were you?" James asked, mouth full. Sirius shrugged. "Nothing from Andromeda," he said quietly. "I didn't think I'd get presents or anything now she's got the baby, but I thought maybe a card. I sent her one." James swallowed and patted his friend's shoulder. "Owl might just be flying late. You know how the post is this time of year." James had received a brand new broom for Christmas, and as soon as breakfast was finished with, all 3 boys headed straight outside to test it. Sirius had his own broom with him, and Mr. Potter suggested with an arched eyebrow that Remus takes James's old one. "Yeah, have it if you want, Moony," James nodded enthusiastically. "To keep." "Thanks." Remus took it, unable to say no in front of James's parents. Goodness knew what he was supposed to do with it over the summer. Try explaining that one to Matron. James and Sirius spent the rest of the morning showing off, and Remus spent it hovering, just skimming the ground with his toes, trying to read his book and look like he was enjoying the broom. He hoped Peter had received his gifts from them and wasn't having too bad of a time with his own family. They were called in by the Potter's house elf Gully, who was dressed in a festive tea towel and had a sprig of holly tucked behind one ear. It was almost lunchtime, and the house smelled deliciously of roast beef with all the trimmings. "Upstairs, washed and changed, the lot of you." Mrs. Potter shook her wooden spoon at them. "I've had Gully set your things out." They washed and dressed quickly, stomachs growling as the wonderful smells from the kitchen wafted up the stairs. Just as they began to make their way down, there was the telltale crack of apparition outside the front door. Sirius tensed again, and Remus, one step behind him on the staircase, gripped his shoulder in a way that he hoped was comforting. Sirius turned round and looked Remus in the eye, giving him a gentle smile of appreciation. It was quite un-Sirius-like, but it felt good. The bell rang and they both turned back to it, James running forward to open the door. A couple stood in the entranceway, a young man and woman holding a bundle in their arms. He had a mop of curly hair and a rather stocky build. She was taller and more slender. As they stepped into the light of the hallway, Remus sucked in his breath. She was the spitting image of Sirius's cousin Bellatrix. "No!" Sirius gasped, starting forward, a smile bursting on his face. "Sirius!" The young woman grinned back, and Remus relaxed, seeing that it wasn't actually Bellatrix. This woman had the same wildly curly hair as her sister, though it was a much lighter shade of brown. It had to be Andromeda. She passed the baby in her arms over to the man next to her, presumably her husband, Ted, and stretched out her arms to pull Remus into a huge hug. Sirius into a huge hug. Remus watched with fierce jealousy, not a little guilt. He'd never seen Sirius so embraced by anyone, let alone a member of his family. Remus made his way slowly down the stairs as Mrs. Potter entered the hallway now, smiling widely, looking very pleased with herself. "A good surprise, then?" she asked as Sirius took Ted's hand and tentatively patted the baby's head. "You did this?" Sirius stared at James's mother in wonder. "Effie was kind enough to invite us." Ted smiled, his eyes twinkling. "Pleased to meet you, Sirius. Nice to meet someone in Andromeda's family." Come in, come in." Mrs. Potter ushered the gathering into the hall. They all followed her toward the dining room, Remus last of all. Andromeda was the polar opposite of the rest of the Black family, or at least those Remus had met so far, though she was as strikingly beautiful as the rest of them, with the same piercing eyes and biting wit. She was full of laughter and merriment. Ted clearly adored her too, and hardly seemed to mind that she left him with the baby most of the time. Dora was the strangest infant Remus had ever seen, though admittedly he'd not met many. She was as cheerful as her mother, with a gummy grin. Her wisps of hair changed from purple to green to blue with each moment, which everyone seemed to find cute rather than bizarre. Before sitting down to eat, they were joined by several other guests, old family friends of the Potters, including, much to Remus's excitement, old Darius Barebones. "A toast!" Mr. Potter raised his glass rather tipsily at the end of the meal. "To friends, old and new." "To the Potters!" Andromeda raised her own glass. "Protectors of outcasts and defenders of black sheep everywhere." Everyone laughed and clinked glasses. "I think I must be the most outcast," Sirius said happily. "I'm a Gryffindor after all." "To Gryffindor!" Mr. Potter called out from the other end of the table. Only the Gryffindors toasted. Andromeda narrowed her eyes at Sirius. "Think so, little cousin? Try marrying a non-relative." "I'll have to," Sirius responded as Gully cleared away the plates and Mrs. Potter fetched in the Christmas pudding. "After Sissy's wedding, there aren't any black women left." "There's Dora." "Excuse me," Ted said, protectively covering his daughter's ears. "Could we please get her through her first Christmas before arranging a betrothal?" "I'm teasing." Andromeda leaned over to kiss them both. "Dora can marry whomever she likes when she's old enough, and I can say with absolute certainty that it won't be anyone at this table."
Yeah, Lupin's gonna prove you wrong.
Lupin is gonna... I'm not gonna say it. Everyone laughed again. Remus eyed Darius furtively. He was looking just as merry as Mr. Potter, his face glowing red from the fire whiskey he'd been knocking back. Once the pudding was extinguished, served and eaten, crackers pulled, and terrible jokes read out, the party adjourned to the living room. Mrs. Potter, Philomena, and Andromeda went upstairs to change into their party dresses. Mr. Potter smoked his pipe, and Ted settled Dora down for a nap. The boys settled into a game of Snap before Darius and Mr. Potter wrangled everyone into a round of charades. Remus had never played charades before, let alone magical charades, which involved a lot of red and gold sparks, though that may have just been high spirits. In the evening, more guests began to arrive, and the house was soon full of music, laughter, and pleasant chatter. Andromeda and Sirius appointed themselves DJs, rifling through their combined record collections and alternating blasting Slade's "Merry Christmas, Everyone" and "I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day" by Wizard. When the snowman brings the snow, well, he might just like to know. He put a big smile on somebody's face. "They're actually called Wizard, though," Sirius kept telling everyone earnestly. "And just listen to it." Even Philomena forgot her melancholy for a few hours, getting up and moving to the music along with James, who was at just about the same height as her and had no clue how to dance, but was pretty chuffed when she took his hand and showed him how to twist. Quite sure he would not be missed, Remus slipped between the throngs of people in search of Darius. There must have been 100 witches and wizards in abundance, some of them teachers at Hogwarts, who Remus did everything to avoid. He heard at least 3 people murmur that Dumbledore was there, somewhere. "They're both blacks, you know," he heard one witch whispering to her friend as they watched Andromeda and Sirius giggling hysterically by the record player. "She's run off and had a baby with that Tonks chap, and the boy, well, he was the heir, but I heard Orion is planning to contest it as soon as the younger boy is of age. Quite the little hellraiser from what I've heard." "He can't be any worse than Orion was. I went to school with him. Nasty, vicious kid. Sirius is a ray of sunshine compared to Orion, and don't get me started on that bitch Walpurga." "Shh," the first witch said nervously. "You never know who's listening these days, even at the Potters." "Well, what's he doing here at all? I'd like to know." "He chums with the Potter boy. You know that what Effie and Monty are like. They've taken in the Pettigrew's eldest, too. She's over there." "Oh, yeah, I heard about that." "Well, it's no secret why she's here. The Pettigrews and the Potters are both pure blood after all, despite the rumours. Mind you, Effie might want to act too quickly. If Philomena sees her chance to bag the black heir, then poor James isn't going to get a look in, is he? I mean, everyone knows what's going on. We all need to pick a side. The Potters picked theirs a long time ago, I'm afraid." Remus felt his blood boil. It was horrible hearing his friend spoken about like that, and the Potters, who Remus was absolutely certain had no ulterior motives when it came to their son, or the company they kept. They let James be friends with him, after all, knowing exactly what he was. He clenched his fists, wishing he was allowed to do magic, do anything to shut these mean old bitches up. Sirius and Andromeda were now bawling at the top of their lungs, joined by James and Philomena. "Well, I wish it was Christmas every day, when the kids start singing and the band begins to play, ooh, I wish it would be Christmas every day, so the bells ring out for Christmas." Remus smiled and at the same moment finally caught sight of Darius. The old man was steaming drunk now, leaning heavily on the banister in the hallway and talking to an old woman who looked like she would very much like to get away from him. Remus straightened his back and consciously smoothed his features. He'd borrowed a set of James's smart dress robes for the occasion, and Philomena had kindly performed a cosmetic spell on his scars. As such, he hoped that he'd get away with at least appearing to be the son of a famous wizard, rather than a muggle brat from a children's home. "Good evening, Mr. Barebones," he said, affecting an accent he'd learned from 3 years of listening to James and Sirius's received pronunciation. He held out a hand to the old man, who shook it, looking at him puzzled. "Remus Lupin. You remember we met last year?" "Oh, yes, the Lupin boy." "That's right." Remus nodded, smiling serenely, keeping his expression controlled. He handed Darius another whiskey as the witch the old man had previously been talking to snuck away. I believe you knew my father. Like Lupin, best jeweler I ever knew. Married a muggle somewhere in Wales, didn't he? That's right, Remus said steadily. My mother. He took a careful breath as Darius guzzled more whiskey, then cleared his throat. Did you know Lyle very well? He found that Lyle was much easier to say than my father. Oh, quite well, quite well. Darius nodded enthusiastically, thrilled to have someone to talk to. Worked under him at the ministry before all the trouble started. Never knew anyone better with boggarts or dementors, come to that. The Azkaban liaison office has missed him, I can tell you. The trouble? Remus asked, swiping another glass of whiskey from Gully, who hurried past with a tray and handed it to the old man. Thank you, dear boy. Yes, the trouble. Nasty business. Nasty. You're talking about the events that led to Lyle's suicide. He couldn't say it. Darius had to say it. I'm talking about the damn werewolves. Darius slammed his empty whiskey glass down on a nearby sideboard. Forgive me, he muttered. Not at all, Remus replied, unblinking. Do go on. I know the story, of course, but I'd like to hear it from someone who knew him. Darius surveyed him carefully through his whiskey-addled haze. He seemed to slump slightly before beginning his story. We couldn't possibly know, you understand. None of us. Well, Lyle was a great wizard. A great wizard, you hear me? He slurred. Remus nodded. Yes. The old man looked upwards, glassy-eyed. Well, he did have a tendency to obsess over things, and that temper flew into rages at work, even during committee meetings, even. Committee meetings? Remus almost broke character. Hasn't your mother told you? Darius looked at him, surprised. Bloody muggles. Not fit to raise our children, I've said it for years. He sighed. Your father was on several committees at the ministry for the regulation and control of magical creatures. Remus was glad he'd taken care of magical creatures, otherwise he'd know nothing about this. As it was, he was able to nod knowingly. Darius continued. Just his area, of course. He was a giant in the field. But he liked his own way, and he was seen as a bit of an extremist in those days. Wanted an overhaul of the werewolf registry, better identification and tracking measures. We just didn't have the manpower for it, and resources were better spent elsewhere. And Lupin, he'd been working with dark creatures for so many years, he thought he saw werewolves everywhere. Always saw danger when there clearly wasn't any. Honestly, we all thought he was a bit eccentric. We couldn't have known. Well, when they brought Greyback in, I was there. I saw him. And mind, I don't mind telling you, none of us thought he was a threat. Clearly drunk, confused, a vagrant. That's what we thought. And when Lupin went off on one of his rants about werewolves, well, we didn't think twice. You let Greyback go, Remus said stonily. Darius looked very sorry for himself now, almost weepy. He nodded. We let him go. Of course now we know. If only we'd listened. Lyle killed himself just after that. Didn't want to hear the committee's apology. He sighed and looked at Remus again. I've always wondered what drove him to it, you know. Some say it was the guilt, not being able to stop their Greyback. I wouldn't have thought he was the type to abandon his family like that. I mean, you couldn't have been much more than a baby. 5, Remus said. I was 5. Yes, well... Darius shifted uncomfortably, looking morosely down at his empty glass. I have my own little theory about that, about what happened. What if Greyback came after him, eh? We know how dangerous he is now. We know he hates wizards more than anything else, and your father said some very unpleasant things. So what I wonder is, did Greyback go back and get him? Did he bite him? If that's what happened, then I must say, I don't blame Lyle at all. Only good beasts are dead beasts. Remus replied, feeling very hot and a bit dizzy. And Greyback? Last I heard, he's in league with you-know-who. Darius shook his head. And the damned irony of it all is that we need your father more than ever. Still, he smiled at Remus kindly. Don't think he died in vain, dear boy. We did end up implementing a lot of his reforms, particularly where half-breeds are concerned. Can't escape the registry now. No, sir. He slammed his wizened old fist down. Excuse me. Remus turned quickly. He'd heard enough. I hear Mr. Potter calling. He slipped back into the crowd of merrymakers, the music still blaring as Sirius and Andromeda led everyone in chorus. So here it is. Merry Christmas. Everyone's having fun. Look to the future now. It's only just begun. Luuk. That's what it... Luuk. That's what it says.
Oh, okay.
I'm not singing because I don't know what the songs are, and I'm not singing the songs.
Right, fair enough.
I don't know how they go.
Fair enough. A couple of times I wanted to stop there and talk about it, but it was like everything was so intense in that chapter. I didn't want to like.
How was my drunk old man voice?
Oh, it was fantastic.
You voiced a drunk old man well. Yay! I feel like there were shades of Auntie Muriel in there.
Yeah, a little bit.
I
got that like high pitched anti-mural every once in a while.
Auntie Muriel is one of my favorites to do.
Oh, I wish Remus could have lived too. He was a good boy. He didn't need to die.
He did, though.
But did he?
He did, to prove Rowling's point.
What's Rowling's point?
Should I talk about this right now? Okay, so Harry's parents die.
Yeah.
It's an act of violence.
Mm-hmm.
Harry grows up neglected with the Dursleys.
Yeah.
Always seeking his family.
Yeah.
And then he finds his family in the Weasleys and Hermione and Ron and all these people are like his family.
Yeah.
And then Dora and Lupin have Teddy.
Yeah.
And they are also murdered by violence. And it serves to demonstrate that violence never really goes away, but you can protect against it with love. Because Teddy lost his parents.
Protect Lupin.
Yeah, but Teddy loses his parents in Lupin and Dora, but then he grows up with Harry, who didn't grow up with that kind of love. But Teddy gets to grow up with Harry and people who love him, and that love breaks the cycle of the violence.
Lupin still didn't need to die. Because Lupin could have showed him love.
Right, but that's not the point.
Here, Lupin still didn't have to.
Oh my goodness. He did, because Dora was too young, and he never wanted her. He committed a till death do us part. That was brutal. Savage.
Oh man, but yeah, so on the point of this chapter though, and the death of Lupin's father.
Yeah, we don't need to get into the Nymphadora conversation right now. Although it is a little weird.
Yeah, it's like
that he sees her as a baby.
Look at the baby. This is your future wife.
No, Teddy grew up not with Harry. Well, right, but Harry is his godfather, and Harry has him over for dinner, and Harry made sure to be a presence in Teddy's life.
Still not his mom and dad.
Well, of course not. Mrs. Weasley isn't Harry's mom, but the love is still there, Dan really does have issues with the whole Nymphadora Lupin relationship.
It is weird when it's put this. I'm glad this isn't canon, because it is really weird. Like, imagine just having a conversation. Like, I remember when I first saw you and you were a little baby, and now we're having a baby. Like, oh, it's weird. You look just like your mother when she was a baby.
Well, think about it. What is Lupin, 13?
Yeah.
Tonks is a baby?
He's 13 or 14 now. Well, whatever.
He's 13.
It doesn't make a difference
But
by the year.
A 13-year age gap? That happens all the time.
It does, but it's weirder when you knew that person as a baby.
All right, fair enough.
You just meet randomly, grew up in Kentucky and the other person grew up in New York or whatever.
Well, this is also not canon, and we're assuming that Lupin met Tonks as a baby. Maybe he never met Tonks as a baby.
That's what I was saying. I really hope that the canon doesn't follow this same path.
Either way, I don't think a 13-year age gap is...
Not unless you knew that person.
I am not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying in general, I don't think it's like a too big of a gap. Not to me. But maybe I'm not the right person to...
Again, it all depends on the age. If one person is 13, it's way too big.
Well, yeah, if you're both consenting adults...
33 and one's 46, okay.
If you're both consenting adults and one of them is 13 years older.
I'm just saying, it all revolves around context.
It does. And and in this case, Lupin is best friends with Sirius. Andromeda is his cousin. And then she just had a baby. Like, yeah, I get the whole, it's a little bit of a weird, too close to home situation.
So yeah, that was a little much for me, that part. But okay, so we found out that the Ministry let Greyback out. Lupin's father caught him. They didn't believe him. And this is actually the first mention of
and then what happens?
Greyback comes back and gets revenge.
That's right. That's exactly what happens.
You have something against werewolves, I'll turn your son into a werewolf.
Yep. Enough. TMI. I mean, if we're on the topic of uncomfortableness, Greyback literally is a metaphor for pedophilia, but,
He's a werewolf and nothing more. You stop that.
He's a pedophile.
No, stop it.
He's a pedophile.
Stop.
He's a pedophile.
Anyways. And they let him go.
It's like they do with a lot of pedophiles, and look what happens. They go get another kid. Just like Greyback went and got another kid.
We're not getting political on this.
It's not political. It's real. It's based in fact. Rowling did it on purpose.
Either way, Greyback only bites children.
Yeah, and he's into it. He likes them young. Ew. Gross.
Okay.
He is so beyond creepy with Hermione.
Well, yeah, he's supposed to be a very creepy character. They do very well. Not gonna lie.
I'm just saying.
We don't need to...
Morality is not political. That's right.
Okay.
Pedophilia is not political. It is yucky, but it is not political.
Yeah, fair enough. But it is kind of judicial.
It is judicial, and I guess it becomes political when you're discussing what kind of punishments of things.
Yeah, very easily can.
I'm not going to have enough time to read the next chapter. I only got like 10 minutes. I'm just not going to have time.
Okay.
But I can tell you what the name of the next chapter is.
So, okay, go ahead.
Confidence. Remus needs some.
Yeah.
Big time.
Or is he going to confide in someone?
I think it means confidence, as in he needs to build up some.
I guess we'll see.
Also, I'm just gonna say we had a little bit of a slow burn thing where Lupin was like,
"Oh, the Andromeda thing. Let's get that out there on the table. What the heck? It's his family, Lupin. Calm down."
"Oh, I know,
It's
right?"
it's like me hugging my sister and you getting jealous.
Yeah, I know, right? He freaked out for no reason. Maybe it's because
to be fair,
he almost did have to marry Narcissa.
I was gonna say the blacks have a tendency to
be a little Targaryen.
Play within the stadium.
To be a little Targaryen.
Yeah.
I would say Lannister, but Targaryens have a better proven history of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And apparently the Potters are in league with the blacks and you know who. First mention of you know who happened.
The first mention of you know who, but they were talking about...
We had hints to him before, but this is the first time they've actually said.
Well, I think they were also mentioning that the Potters may be trying to get Philomena and James to get together because everyone's pureblood.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm with Remus on that one. I don't think the Potters are trying to do that. I think they're just nice people.
Yeah.
And they're totally not in league with you know who.
Well, no, but obviously they think. But
yeah,
we also
those
have
two witches gossiping.
We have a view into the future. Okay.
Also, I just thought it was funny when Remus was listening to them gossiping, and he was literally like, "These old bitches need to shut up."
Because you feel like that in your daily job.
Yeah, I do. Okay, I say that multiple times a day. And oh my god, today was really terrible.
Sorry to hear that.
It was really... They were like...
Yeah, there was a Voldemort reference when they were talking about the Potters, and they said...
No.
The blacks were in league with you know who.
No. No.
Yeah?
No, it was Greyback.
Oh, yeah.
It was Greyback, not the blacks.
That's right.
Where he goes, "Where's Greyback now?" And Darius is like, "He's in league with you know who, they say."
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah. So the question I was going to ask you at the beginning, because we have like 10 minutes to kill.
Oh, were you going to ask me like a random question?
Yeah, I was.
Oh, okay, because I never thought of a random question.
I was kind of thinking about...
I hope my face cake is going...
So, what book have you read that most people consider like a classic or an epic that you absolutely hated?
The Scarlet Letter.
Yeah?
First book that comes to mind, The Scarlet Letter. I hate that book.
That was quick. I thought you were going to have to think more.
I hate that book.
Why?
Because I was just literally just not interested in the story at all whatsoever. There was only one character I liked in the whole book, and it was the villain, and he was not in the book enough because he literally it's a book I hate, but the character is one of my favorites. Roger Chillingsworth is a bad dude, and he's very competent and he's very capable, but he's a bad dude, but he's very good at being a bad dude. And then the rest of the book,
Robert Chillings.
Like, Reverend Dimsdale is so whiny the whole time. And then Hester Prynne and her weird daughter that they think is a demon, Pearl. Like, I just was... And it's all Puritan. I just was like... And Herman Melville thought that Nathaniel Hawthorne was, like, the better writer and way more accomplished. And I'm sitting here going, dude, you wrote Moby Dick. That book is far and away way better than The Scarlet Letter could ever try to be. Dude, That book sucked. I hated it. Sorry, I really feel passionately about that book. I hated it. I got
Well, I guess Anne Frank, yeah. I did not like Anne Frank either. I can't comment on Scarlet Letter because I did not read that book, but Anne Frank was just so dull. I mean, there was some great stuff in there, but trying to get through it was just painful. My book, though,
the Anne Frank thing. I can see it. I didn't hate Anne Frank, but there are definitely some parts that are slow.
It's just such a schlag.
But it's kind of like a girl. Like, I think the issue with Anne Frank is that there are some things she talks about and some things that she experiences that are inherently like you have to be a girl to understand what she's going through. And I feel like as a boy, there are just some things you're not going to get inherently about the book.
Oh, there's some news I want to say too, but I'm going to wait till we talk to Noel because you haven't read the book yet. But he might have, and I don't know. So it might make for better conversation.
Okay.
So my book that I hated, that everyone thinks is such a classic, you already know this.
I was gonna say, I think I know. I think I know.
I've vented about it before.
Yep. Go ahead.
Catcher in the Rye. Oh my god, it was so boring.
I've never read Catcher in the Rye, but at the same time, I've never really had a desire to read Catcher in the Rye either.
I had to. It was like 8th grade English, 7th or 8th grade English. We had to read it.
That's kind of surprising that you read it in middle school. That's usually like a senior year book.
No, it was like 8th grade we read it. But it was so boring. Like, I think I read like the first third of the book, and then I just was like, no, I skimmed through and answered some questions.
Dan Williams, you sound like me, because the first time I read To Kill a Mockingbird was in like 4th grade, and I absolutely loved it. And to this day, I love To Kill a Mockingbird. And I think the first time I read Of Mice and Men, I was in the 4th grade. Like I read both those books in the same year, and I was either in the 3rd or 4th grade, and I loved them to pieces.
Of Mice and Men was a fantastic book. That is one that lives up to its legendary status.
Of Mice and Men? Oh my god, I know. I love that book.
Hands down.
That book is great. That book is so good.
Well, it was a really good movie, actually, too, but I like their adaptation.
You know, for 9th grade English...
was absolutely amazing.
For 9th grade English, we got to read The Odyssey and The Hobbit for summer reading. How cool was that?
Oh, yeah, we read The Odyssey. We never read The Hobbit.
I loved The Odyssey. Because our whole 9th grade English year was all about the hero's journey and Joseph Campbell. And that was like the entire year as we just studied the hero's journey. So part of our homework was also to watch Star Wars and stuff. Like 9th grade English was awesome.
Oh, you owe it to yourself to read Of Mice and Men. It's a very short book.
It's a very short book. It's not even 200 pages.
I didn't think so. But it's very good.
I think people find it to be a difficult read because of the language. Not the slurs, but the structure of the dialogue, I think, is a struggle for some people.
Maybe.
But definitely read it. Give it a shot. Have you read any John Steinbeck? Have you read, like...
Grapes of Wrath.
Grapes of Wrath or...
Wait, did John Steinbeck write The Giver?
No.
No. I don't know why I, pieced those together. I caught myself.
Oh my god, I'm trying to think of... East of Eden is another one.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, East of Eden.
And I don't know why I can't think of any more off the top of my head. It's terrible.
East of Eden was actually another one that I wasn't, too fond of.
I never read it.
I didn't absolutely hate it.
Oh, The Red
Catcher
Pony.
in the Rye, I wouldn't put it up there as, a book I hated, but...
The Red Pony is a John Steinbeck book. I read that one. The Red Pony. That's a good one. It's short, too. It's short, like Of Mice and Men.
I feel like... Does John Steinbeck write any lengthy books? I feel like...
Grapes of Wrath is long.
I didn't think it was that long.
Long compared to the other books.
Isn't
Grapes
it
of Wrath
is 200-300 pages?
I think it's more like 4 or 5.
Oh. That's
maybe 3 or 4. I don't know. I've never read The Grapes of Wrath. I don't know.
I read it, but it was a long time ago. Again, that was another one.
These are mine. Where's yours?
It's in my bag.
Oh, okay.
It's probably like, bring this back up. 8th or 9th grade.
Didn't finish 19. No grapes. No Steinbeck. No 451. Didn't finish 1984. I liked Fahrenheit 451. I thought it was good.
I thought Fahrenheit 451 was fantastic.
Yo, do yourself a favor.
And
and read the 3 and 4 Musketeers.
I need to read those. I've never read them.
Because you see all these movies, there are so many Three Musketeers movies, it's ridiculous, and they're all very serious.
Mm-hmm.
But there are 2 movies that were made in the 70s with Oliver Reed and Michael York, and they did the 3 and the 4 Musketeers, and they are the closest to being book accurate, and they're hilarious. Like, they're comedies, and they're so funny. They're kind of like almost Monty Python-esque in their humor. Like, they're very tongue-in-cheek and very funny. They're really good.
Yeah?
Yeah, you should totally read them. You read The Count of Monte Cristo, right?
No, that's one
You want to read.
I want to read.
Read the 3 and the 4 Musketeers. I will recommend those books
the way
all
we've
day
been
long.
like reading stuff for the channel, and I haven't had like the time, because that's a hefty book. That thing is huge. You want to talk about a big book?
Yeah, that's a big book. The 3 and the 4 Musketeers together is huge.
Yeah.
All
right, I'm gonna step away and grab
Moby Dick is one of my top 10 all-time favorite novels, hands down. Moby Dick. I could do a 4-hour live stream just about Moby Dick. I love that book so much. So much. We were doing like a top 10 favorite books one day, and anytime, Moby Dick and Don Quixote will always make the list. Every time. Love Don Quixote. And Moby Dick is just so good.
Moby Dick is a fantastic book, and I really want to read it now.
You gotta read it.
Especially after... Oh, I didn't grab the book.
It's such a... Moby Dick is like... Reading Moby Dick is like... It's not just reading a book. It's like an entire experience reading that book. Don Quixote is too, to a certain degree. Like, Don Quixote is just so good. So funny. Sancho Panza is so great. Dulcinea. I love that musical, The Man of La Mancha.
Can you hand me my bag so I can grab my earbuds?
Dulcinea. Dulcinea.
I feel like...
To dream the impossible dream. Ah. So good. Yeah. Dan Williams knows. Don Quixote's on the list. Gotta put it on the list.
You know what book I really liked, and I did not expect to like it when we got assigned the reading, was Night. I feel like I've said it before on the channel. Night was such a good book.
I'm gonna get up, actually, real quick. I'm gonna use the bathroom. And my cheesecake's almost up.
Okay.
What's tomorrow?
Yeah, we're just waiting on Noel anyways. Today's the 9th. But yeah, waiting on Noel to start. So I don't know if you've followed along, Dan, but since we're talking about books that are amazing, I can say with all confidence, How Do You Live? This book is absolutely amazing. You should definitely give it a read.
Wow. I think this might be my best souffle. I think this might be my best souffle cheesecake.
Solomon's Key is JK's inspiration for Flamel.
That's cool. That's interesting. Oh, geez.
I actually started reading J.K. Rowling's newest book, The Christmas Pig, which is actually, I think if you have a child who has a stuffed animal that they love, like, you relate to it instantly. It's a great book. I'm liking it so far. It's a kid's book, and I'm like into it. So, but like I said, I think you have to be a parent with a kid who has that to really understand it. Like that's a lot. Like Ramona has her little doll named Mimi, who she has
He's
to
a
have.
bear. He's a bear.
A little bear. Well, she always dresses it up though. Might as well.
So we bought Mimi. I bought a Christmas sweater for Mimi, but it's actually a wine sweater, but it fits Mimi.
So yeah.
There's the cheesecake.
Thank you, wine. Oh,
I'm gonna leave it for a few minutes before I turn it on. Before I open the thing.
hold on. I think I just got a switch over. Noelle dropped in here, so.
Okay. Let's have Dan
All right.
tell us if he can hear us too. Because we had issues.
Yep. Yeah, hopefully we can. Hello, Noelle. He just stepped away.
Where are you going?
Hello, hello. Sorry, I'm
Hello.
getting my headphones this time.
You're good. We're messing.
All right, let's see.
Video. Audio.
Yep, should be good. All right. Never close that window capture.
Well, hello.
Well, hello. Welcome.
So
Thank
are you as
and welcome to you.
So are
Where's
you
you?
as stoked as we are to be done with this book?
I'm
you-
stoked and I'm not stoked because this book really had me. These concluding chapters were like, this is so good. But
It really was.
I am ready to move on in some ways. So
I cried. Like I said, I cried. Can he hear us?
Yeah.
yep, I can hear you.
Can our audience hear us?
Oh yeah, were there audio issues before? I heard something about
yeah,
that.
last week, like for the first chapter, people had trouble hearing you. So there was like some cutout audio. Yeah. Was unfortunate.
I wonder how would I fix that?
Well,
Yep, audio's good.
all right, audio's
checked on
good.
my phone.
Well, that'd be something that he will have to
Yeah.
because it was a settings issue on our
Yeah, I
end.
think it was like a settings issue or a connection issue, something like that. Because our audio, for some reason, did go out the last couple of live streams.
But either way, it sounds like it's working now. So we should talk about the second half of
How Do You Live?
How Do You Live by Genzaburo Yoshino.
Yes.
Mild echo. Okay. So there's a mild echo.
Okay.
But that's better than not being able to hear us at all. I'm sorry. I'm passionate and excited. I cried reading the end of this book, and then I had to go back inside to work after I had this huge spiritual revelation at the end of this book, and then I'd go back inside to my job.
I know.
That sucked.
Well, let's start out at the beginning, all right?
Okay.
Let's start out with
Chapter 5. Napoleon, right?
Napoleon, yes. What it means to be a true courageous hero.
What is a hero? What does being a hero mean?
Someone who owns up to the consequences of their actions, no matter what those consequences are. And who fights for what they believe, as long as that belief is pushing society and people, the stream, the flow of humanity in the right direction. And not selfishly for your own.
The uncle demonstrates that Napoleon is such a good example because it's iterated over and over that there have been few people on the planet like Napoleon who can accomplish so much in such a short period of time, who have so much spirit and drive to do what they do, but then at some point can be taken in by their own ego and their own hype and their own mysticism and start making decisions that are power for power's sake and self-serving and detrimental to humanity. And that leads to their downfall. And I think that the lesson of Napoleon also echoes later in the later chapter with a quote.
Yeah, I feel like it was a perfect place to stop, because I think from this chapter on, it almost feels like one super long chapter because they blur so perfectly into one another.
I totally got that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It just starts on this exponential catapult up.
Mm-hmm. But I love the whole reverse back to chapter 1, where he talks about this flow, this stream of people,
and how the molecules,
people are like
the particles, right? The particles.
Yeah,
they're a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, and even the like waves of people coming into Tokyo and kind of how it breathes and stuff, just everything. That one line just seemed to like connect everything prior to this chapter now.
This is the chapter with the sister, right?
Yes,
yes,
because she tells the story.
He tells the story of Napoleon, and you get the contrast of the bullies at school, who are using the vehicle of the school in respect to bully people.
Yeah,
which is what happens in the world today on a bigger scale. So I think they use the microcosm of the bullies and the thing at school, and well, if you do this, you're going to be a traitor and this and that, to kind of create a microcosm of the larger issue of like nationalism, for example, and the issues of nationalism.
Well, you didn't actually read the afterthought by the translator, did you, Noel?
This I actually didn't. I should have.
Well, can I just say something real quick?
Yeah.
This felt very much like precursors to the propaganda that would come later with World War II Japan and the attitudes of the government and how they were trying to persuade people to fight for the motherland. And if you didn't, I got some kind of pre-war vibes from these older kids.
Well, it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder because the author Genzaburo Yoshino, clearly pretty interested in history, lots of historical like parts of this book. I wonder what he would have thought of Japan's turn in World War II.
So
if you read the part afterwards,
I know I didn't have time to read the afterward. Hang on 2 seconds. I gotta open the oven a crack. I'm sorry, my cheesecake.
I can't say what I want to say because it's gonna answer
I'm
everything.
Skimming this now. No.
All
right.
All right. It is short. We could probably read it on the stream, the whole thing, but
I just want to say,
like, paraphrase.
Oh my god.
So Yoshino actually grew up in a time where Japan was like cracking down, and they actually developed the thought police. Or I'll look up their word and you can pronounce it. It's only like a couple pages, so it'll be easy enough to find. There, how do you say that word?
Toko.
And the reason why I was saying that I was going to talk about this later is because once he said that, this book reminded me about 1984, just with a happier ending, about like free speech. Yoshino was actually arrested for speaking out and sent to jail. So later on, he wanted to create a textbook about free speech and speaking out from your government and that sort of thing. But in light of the current state of Japan and the fact that he would get thrown into jail, him and his friend who was helping him with this, or he was helping his friend with this, and then it turned into like his project, he wrote How Do You Live? Okay. So really, this whole story is kind of like a textbook about speaking out and knowing what is right and the importance of free speech. So yeah.
See,
it's pretty much exactly what you guys were talking about, which is why I was kind of like, just let me jump in. Because yes, that's exactly what it is.
I feel like it's that, but I also feel like it is so much more.
Well, yeah.
And the last 2 chapters hinge on that. And the last 2 chapters are probably exactly why I'm super excited for our next book. But anyway,
well, it's
I'm not going to try to get ahead of
Are
myself.
you going to be the person that fights for your own interest and doesn't help society?
Or are you going to be the
on
person
free
that's
speech
going
by
to
shutting people down? Or are you going to be the person who, helps change the world? How are you going to live? I love that last line. Just ends, how will you live?
How do you live? Yeah. I also think Dan Williams makes an excellent comment here. Nationalism is an infantile disease.
Yeah,
it is.
Pretty much.
It's definitely a base lower.
Yeah, it's a low frequency
Yeah,
ideology.
yeah.
It's just
ideology.
like,
That's what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very isolationist, fear-based, reptile brain type of thing.
I think your point, Alexis, about the school and how that's a microcosm for that issue, like when you said that, I was like, you're so right, because I think the author mentions that it's like, oh, people probably should care about their school, but when you're weaponizing that and turning that into a cudgel to beat people with, that's when you are going down a bad road.
Right.
Mhm.
So the line between that, and if you're the one holding the cudgel, then you can't see that line, and things just start getting weird. And I think that's the peril of nationalism, is that, it can start with good intentions, just like Napoleon started probably with good intentions, but then his arrogance and his ambition just
Got the
swept
better
him
of him.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
It's
believed
like his uncle
he believed his
said.
own hype.
In the beginning, he was fighting for something that the people could believe in, and he was fighting to help the people. And then later on,
By the
it
time
turned
he attacked
into-
Russia.
Yeah, it's like, I just want to do this to feed my own ego because I'm the greatest.
Yeah. And the thing about Russia is that you will see that attack of Russia happen again in history. With World War II specifically, Hitler makes the exact same mistake Napoleon does and invades Russia, and the exact same thing happens. And I don't think it's an accident that the author chooses to use Napoleon as an example, because there are so many resonances to World War II.
To what would happen. Yeah, to what would
things
happen.
that have happened.
Well, at the
And
time,
I also think it's very...
At the time this was written, Napoleon was the closest thing. Hitler hadn't happened yet. So he couldn't use him as a reference. And Napoleon was this huge figure that he blew up. He went from this impoverished child to
a nobody. He was a nobody.
Emperor in 10 years, or no, 20 years.
And if nothing else, you have to admire that kind of passion and drive. And I think
yeah, that level of achievement. Yeah.
Even after the mistakes that he made, there were 2 points that struck home for me. Mostly because I think they did resonate with me because of Harry Potter, but it's also because it's just a theme. Harry Potter is the most recent one in my brain, but it's a theme that reoccurs in literature over and over and over again. When he talks about how Napoleon faced the Battle of Waterloo, knowing he was going to lose, but felt that it was better to charge ahead and fight anyway. And then again, when he's on the dock and he goes up for fresh air and he's a prisoner, but he goes up for fresh air with his head held high, full of confidence. And it just reminds me of that line in Half-Blood Prince when Harry says it was the difference. It was whether you walk into the arena with your head held high or whether you're being dragged there. And that makes all the difference in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of all his poor decisions, egotistical, selfish decisions, you have to still look at the man that Napoleon was to see that regardless of what happened, you still couldn't break his spirit. And I think that's an important lesson.
Yeah. Well, there's a line in this chapter that it's a really small line, but it really caught my attention during Katsuko, the sister of
Yeah,
oh gosh, Mizutani. She is talking about courage and how that is a big part of heroism.
Mm-hmm.
And she says something. She says,
yeah, General Custard. I think General. I'm just answering the comment. I think Napoleon and Waterloo in Russia have direct parallels to Custer's Last Stand. Russia was very much an arrogant power play, but had achieved greatness up until that point. And then you have Custer's Last Stand, and it was a total ego move, and it was the ruin of him. And I think that's the uncle telling him, like, you always have to make your decisions for the good of people and not make them out of the place of selfishness and self-empowerment. And that's, I think the uncle is saying, this is where Napoleon misstepped, is when he started making decisions based on his own personal gain rather than progressing people forward.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to address that.
No worries. Yeah, so here's the line that caught my attention. Courage grows in a person higher than any barrier, and then even your precious life becomes less precious. I think that's the most fantastic thing. People becoming more than people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you're talking about Napoleon with his head held high on the bow of the ship, knowing that he's captured and
his
it's
life is over
for him, but he's still resolute, right? That's him being more than a person. He's become a symbol. He's become an icon. He's almost embodying an energy.
Yeah.
And few people reach that, and I guess it is his courage that allowed him to reach that,
Yeah. What's the line? What is it that Ned Stark says to Bran? About being brave?
Can a man still be brave when he's scared?
Can a man still be brave when he's afraid? And Ned Stark says,
that's the only time a man can be brave.
That is the only time a man can be brave. And that illustrates Katsuko's point, is when you're in the face of life and death, you're going to be scared beyond your wildest dreams. But to still go forward and do it, and to have that spirit that what you're fighting for is beyond you, that is immense courage.
Mm. That's that also reflects a lot of the Japanese culture too, like the samurai culture, because that's one of the teaching that line is not word for word, but it's very close to a line I read in a book. Can't think of the title now. It's Bushido, I believe.
The Code of Bushido?
Yeah, the Code of Bushido. Where it's all about the samurai and like the
That's
code
like the way of the warrior, right?
Yeah,
That's
like the way. I was gonna say it's the code they live by.
Yeah, that line's almost right from there.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I got a little bit of that too.
At the end of the chapter, the friends decide that and basically important. The thing about the bullies is anyone who behaves in a hyper individualistic manner that they don't like is considered other and an issue and will be beaten.
Well, I think one of the biggest things is like it started with good intentions. Like when you start reading about what they're doing, you're kind of like, oh, they're trying to help school pride, and yeah, you should be more prideful and all this. And then it's slowly just, well, that isn't okay. Okay, that's a little much. Wait, slow down. As they're going through this, and then we're gonna beat up anyone who disrespects older kids or anyone who, I can't remember all the things they said.
But it comes to a point where some of the friends are threatened, and they all make a pact together that if one of them is threatened and one of them is going to get beaten up, all of them will stand together and support each other in the face of adversity.
right? And that's like that's a huge thing that happens
because
at grander scale in politics, you know?
It has become
like look at Hitler. He was saying a bunch of things, everything seems good. Yeah, let's do this, and then
all of a sudden it wasn't.
Oh god, what just happened?
Because I can't remember what the line is, and I cannot remember who says it, and I could look it up. Do you want me to look it up? Because it illustrates. Do you want me to look it up real quick?
Yeah, you can look it up real quick. And I agree with Dan. Dan says patriotism is okay, nationalism not so much, and few recognize the fine line between. 100%. And I think what Napoleon shows when he's fighting for his country and the people and their welfare, that's patriotism. And then
and we can all agree that that's a decent, that's good. Yeah.
And like nationalism, I think, is his ego stage, where he just believes that he's the greatest ever. He's not fighting for anything. He just wants to prove that he's the best, and he just thinks that he's invincible.
So I found the quote. So it is by Martin Niemöller. He was a prominent Lutheran pastor in Germany, and he was a very outspoken public foe for Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
And the quote is, "First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me."
Okay, I've heard that quote. I never knew who said it, but I have heard.
But I think it illustrates the point of, if you don't stand together, those people who seek to divide and call everyone the other and the enemy, they win. And that, I think, leads us directly into the next chapter.
Mm-hmm. I think that statement also kind of encompasses the whole idea of just focusing on oneself and not focusing on moving the stream of humanity onward. You're just, you're focusing on your one little molecule.
You're not pushing forward. I would agree. 4th of July is patriotic. Denying globalism is detrimental. I would absolutely agree. That's a perfect illustration of the dichotomy of what that means, and the positivity of, like, being a patriot to me is being ever critical of your government. That's being a true patriot, because you hold the ideal of what it should be and you criticize it when it isn't that. That's what it means. Denying globalism, that's isolationist. That's sticking your head in the ground and ignoring everything.
You support what you feel is right, but you question what you feel is wrong.
Thank you, Dan. It's one of my favorite quotes. I love that quote. I think it says a lot. I think it can be applied across the board.
100%. But yeah, we can say a lot about Napoleon. Napoleon was a great man in a lot of ways, but
okay. Right. If you don't know your enemy and you don't know what you're fighting against, how can you make it better? But when you point it out and the light is shed upon it, then you know what you're facing and you can fix it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they say sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? Like, once something is exposed,
then you know what it is.
Then people know what it is, and then they can take a stance on it or whatever. But yeah.
All right. You go ahead. I have to pee, and I gotta check my cheesecake again. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to think of it. Was the next chapter? Where are we at?
Page 180.
680.
Well, yeah, but I think more happened in this chapter. Maybe it didn't.
Well, I'll get
like I said, these last chapters kind of blend together. No, it is the next chapter, yeah, because the events of the snow day.
Yep.
Where Copper's courage is tested.
Yes. And I thought this whole chapter was written in a very persuasive way. I was very in Copper's head. I could feel the decision that he made, because to him it's like he he decided he wanted to help his friends.
Yeah.
But for some reason, he couldn't. He could not act. And I just think there's something really human about that. I mean...
Oh, absolutely. I think, I mean, I feel like everyone has had one of these moments. Whether it's as big as this or smaller, where you wanted to speak out, but something just stopped you from doing it. And then you just go on afterwards like, I should have said something, or I should have done something.
Yeah. And I like how it's not really clear what stopped him. I mean, yeah, he's scared of being beaten up by the other bigger kid. But there's a hint that it's something else, you know?
I think that's what makes it so human, because a lot of the times when that does happen to us, we don't know. You know, it's just like...
Everyone, the thing about this chapter that really hit me is that the author describes it in such a way that literally every single person could pick it up and just read this chapter and understand exactly what is happening, because it is such... And I think it feeds into the next chapter, that it's just such a specifically human emotion to see, to want to react, to have fight or flight response, and you freeze, and you don't know what to do, and you
or
fail
you have
to...
the energy to fight that flight response, but you don't have enough energy to kind of get you over that barrier.
And you just,
fight response.
it's almost like it's almost like evolution. Just...
You're a deer in the headlights.
Yeah, and you just can't, even if you try to will yourself. And we saw this with Stephen King when we read it. How many of the characters, like, I wanted to move, but I couldn't. I was frozen to the spot, you know?
Yeah, and that shows up in Lovecraft too, by the way.
Oh, yeah,
just like,
a lot of the time.
You're faced with unspeakable horror, and it's like, I was frozen. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah. And Dan actually, basically, he hasn't read it, but he got the point, pointing out our failures to make it better.
Yep.
Which it's actually the next chapter where we get to really discuss that.
This was very much the event, and describing the event, and describing Copper's feelings in the act, because this is the only chapter where we don't get a notebook entry from the uncle. Because it's just about literally moment to moment to moment of the event, and Copper in real time reacting to the environment around him and how he responds or how he doesn't. And it's just very much
so
a big
well written
action to then set up the rest of the consequences for the rest of the story.
And I don't know if you guys felt this way, but do you know when you're watching a show and something super embarrassing happens to a person and you like get embarrassed and uncomfortable, you almost can't watch it?
Literally like, the entire...
This story kind of made me like antsy, like, because
literally
I feel
the
like
entire
I've been in
UK
that situation
office.
Before.
Oh yeah, I know what you're saying.
I had that feeling.
Not
quite like the embarrassment feeling, but you know, I was just kind of like...
I physically felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I physically felt uncomfortable. Like, I really felt there, like, sitting there going, like, Hopper, throw a snowball, do something, come on, man, it was, like, I just... Which is a testament to the writing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's winding you up so much.
Yeah. I just had to throw that out there because I feel like a book that can make you have a physical response like that definitely deserves the praise for just how well the writing is done.
Yeah, and he sets it up perfectly. It's a happy snow day at recess. They're all having fun.
It's picturesque. It's perfect.
Oh yeah, it's like
super
a snow
best
globe.
friend. Yeah, super best friends moment.
He feels like Napoleon.
Totally.
He feels like
has
Napoleon.
That moment where he's imagining that he's on the battle of, I forgot what battle, but yeah.
Wagram.
He ends up really being like Napoleon though, because he had that high where he's going around with his friends, and then he had the great fall.
Yeah,
there.
It definitely is a parallel in a mirror. Yeah. Dan Williams said, or nearly having a George McFly versus Biff moment. That's great.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
great.
Much.
It is. It is.
And yes,
although George
a girl
got the last
smiling
laugh
at you.
on him.
That's
in
true.
the end. At
That's
least
true.
until the second one, where I don't. It's
Everything
crazy.
went out the window.
Everything goes insane in the second
Everything
one.
just. Can I just say, this is totally off topic, but I pulled my cheesecake out of the oven, and it's beautiful.
Your Napoleon moment. Hopefully it doesn't come crashing down.
Listen, I made this for my coworker who is going out and having really crazy surgery. I made that.
Guess what? No matter what happens, then you have to have the courage to give her that cake.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah, you can't back down. You can't back out now.
It's nice and jiggly. It's souffle. It's the Japanese cheesecake. It's nice and It's
yeah.
nice and jiggly.
Cool.
It looks nice.
That deep dish, I can't see it from here.
It did shrink down a little bit. I think I should have left it in the oven without opening the door. Dan, if we ever meet in person, I will make you a Japanese cheesecake and change your life.
It's really like, I love cheesecake before, but Japanese cheesecake is just on a whole nother level.
I won't eat it. I promise. It's for my coworker. I won't eat it. I gotta let it sit, and then I gotta dust it in some powdered sugar.
It's like one of the best ones you've made, and
you can't eat it. No. Like I said, I'll make you a Japanese cheesecake. We ever meet up, I'll make you a souffle cheesecake.
And
I'll change your life, Dan.
Yeah. So back on the story, just
I know that was an Alt Swift X moment. I'm sorry, we don't do tangents.
Don't worry, I'm here to keep you on course.
I am all about that. If I had a live stream where I was just me talking, oh my god, the tangents. The most random shit you've ever heard in your life.
The Lexitron late night talk show.
Let's do it.
I mean,
that would be cool.
Down.
We could pull like a Space Ghost coast to coast.
Hell yeah. Yeah, let's do it.
I mean, I'm always bringing up those things we can talk about.
I'm down.
Find like interesting news that I'm totally down to.
I'm down to do it. We'll have to do it at like midnight on Saturday.
I still have that question to ask you after this.
Yep.
I didn't ask it before, so I want to ask you too, because she actually hasn't read the book, but you may have. Have you read 1984?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
A while ago, but yeah.
I'm interested to get your input on this. But on this book, so yeah, Copper fails to stand up for his friends while they all get pelted with snowballs. And then he just sits there in the snow and can't move for as long as he can remember, just in his head chanting, "Coward, coward."
He psychs himself out almost, too.
Yeah.
Because at first he's like, move, move, move. And then afterward he's like, you wuss.
Yeah.
You absolute wuss.
To the point where he gets physically ill.
Yeah. I fully believe that this is when he gets sick after this, and he gets the fever and everything else, I really believe that this is a physical manifestation of his mental woes. Which is a very Buddhist principle that your own
psycho energy is going to affect
it's going to make you
health.
sick, right? I think that's a very Buddhist idea. And I think it's just manifesting itself here, but I don't think he realizes what it is. Like he says, I was sweating, I was in the snow and this and that. Yeah, you were. But you also just had this huge kind of almost traumatic event happen to you. And you can't handle your own reaction to it, and you're working yourself up into your own frenzy and making yourself sick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's how I took it.
I don't know if... I think I read something similar. I don't know if it was like pop science or whatever, but I read somewhere like your mood will determine your health in some cases, I guess. Not every case, obviously.
It really can, though.
Yeah.
It really can.
Well, I mean, if you look at your situation, you're always stressed out about it. Your body releases cortisol. Cortisol causes all kinds of issues for your body. So if you teach yourself to keep a positive outlook on life, you have less cortisol release, less stress. So it actually, looking at stuff in a positive manner does actually improve health just from that.
They say depression is linked to Alzheimer's,
They also link it to brain deterioration and decrease mental health outside of just depression. So it's like, oh, great. Now I have depression. Now I have to be depressed that I'm going to get more depressed from my depression.
Dan Williams says that his seizures are a physical manifestation of his mental woes. That's why his channel is called Shake, Rattle, and Roll. It's like the
that
fake
makes
part
sense.
of his channel name.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've struggled with depression for years. Like anyone
me too.
Anyone who says like, "Oh yeah, no, you're full of it." Everyone has their struggles. Some are worse than others, but everyone has their things.
Yeah, it's troubling to think that depression is genetic, which I don't know if it is, but I feel like it is, but I don't know that for sure.
Well,
certain types.
Well, there are certain kinds of depression that are genetic, like I don't know what it's called, but there is this specific type of clinical depression that is so severe that like every other day you're contemplating suicide. But it's not just like situational or seasonal or whatever that a lot of people experience. It's literally a mental illness that can be inherited, that is biochemical in its nature. A la schizophrenia, etc. Like
I know what you mean.
And it's debilitating.
It's so I think it's the people are actually born without the receptors for like dopamine and serotonin.
Yeah, like so there's a biological
even antidepressants don't alleviate their depression.
Be right back.
Well,
so it's
what else is new?
A very severe case.
It's very rare.
But yeah, so I try not to think about that genetics part because it is kind of troubling to ponder.
It's very rare though.
True.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, kind of going back to the story, I can see why, was it the cold? Was it his mental woes? Whatever it is, by the time we get to chapter 7, Copper is in a world of hurt.
Yeah, and just to end this chapter, I think the author kind of knew that and didn't want you to know whether it was physical or mental woes, because it ends with him, pulling the covers off and feeling cold, and he's like, that's fine, let the cold run through me, let me get sicker. So is it, was it a mental thing, or was it because he was cold? But he wouldn't have pulled it off if he wasn't
That's what the Night King would say if he was like a Sith Lord. He would say, let the cold run through you.
Yes, let the cold run through you.
But anyway, sorry. You said that and I was like, that's all I can think of now. So, yeah.
Don't worry, Dan. Kids are messy. Don't worry about it. There's a lot of reasons. All right, I think. Now, see, Dan, you live in an RV. I mean, that's pretty cool, though. I actually lived out of my car for a while, out of choice, and just traveled around, and it was some of the funnest times, honestly. And I learned a lot of like little tricks and stuff to get free food and showers and that sort of thing.
Oh shit.
So are you good for us to start chapter 7? Or you got more to do over there? Hey, love. All right, so we can start. All right. So yeah, chapter 7. What happens in chapter 7?
Hang on. Just look. Just look.
Oh, beautiful. Oh wow, that's really jiggly. Yeah, I see what you mean about it. Like,
this is the best one I've made.
It looks really good. All right, Stone Step Memories. Yeah.
Yep.
So this chapter was basically just Copper laying in bed, thinking to himself, thinking of excuses to tell his friends about why he did what he did. Which again is something else that I think anyone can relate to. You mess up, there's always something that pops into your mind, like, well, if I say this, maybe I can get out of it, and that sort of thing. But in the end, you just got to have the courage to fess up to what you did, face the consequences, whatever they may be. Because is it this chapter where the uncle talks about clearing your conscience?
Yeah, no, the uncle gives, I think it is, because the uncle gives him a big pep talk at the end of this one.
Okay, yeah.
I'm all done with the
journal.
I'm sorry.
The journal entry of the uncle's notebook at the end of this chapter, by far my favorite uncle notebook entry.
Me too.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he went deep into how misery is linked with humanity. Like, being sad, it's part of the experience, and it's what makes us great. It's, in spite of our failings, we only rise. That kind of idea.
It's literally the explanation of yin and yang. You don't know the good unless you feel the bad.
Exactly. You don't have woes about only having one mouth.
Right. If that's all you have, you don't. It's when people question God, right? Well, if there was a God, these things wouldn't happen. If there was a God, people wouldn't be murdered. Towns wouldn't be wiped out by hurricanes. Yes, they absolutely would, because you can't appreciate the joy and the miraculousness and the beauty of life and positivity unless you can also experience negativity. And you also cannot experience being good and doing good unless you know what it feels like to mess up and do bad and know how that feels. This chapter also kind of felt like, how do you live? The crime and punishment chapter.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
This was so
heavy
and depressing.
I think the pain aspect was such a great analogy. How you don't know when something is wrong without the pain. We don't want the pain, but we don't know what healthy is if we didn't know when those limits are pressed. Like,
totally. Great point. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what they use, you'll never know that. I think they use the toothache, right?
Yeah, go figure, because I have a cavity that needs to be filled. So I just felt that personally. Like, oh, come on. Really? The tooth? Come on now.
Or, if you, like, burn yourself, if you put your hand on a hot stove,
it's going to burn.
You don't feel pain, your hand's just going to cook.
Mm-hmm.
And then.
Yeah, it's the regret that comes after a mistake that allows you to learn from it.
And
grow. So by that same token, any general sadness, not even connected to a specific event, just a general, we were talking about depression earlier. And I think, it's a given that most people are depressed on some level. Maybe not everybody. I don't want to make that blanket statement, but it's just something we all have in common. So
I feel like it's a lot more common now than it used to be, because I think people are a lot more open and outspoken about how they feel.
I was going to say, I don't think depression is more common. I think more people are comfortable about speaking about it.
Dan, go to the dentist. I waited 5 years to go back to the dentist, and my mouth is a hot mess. Go to the dentist, sir. Sorry, he was...
Oh.
This quote also really resonated with me as an animal person. In the notebook. Naturally, pain is not unique to human beings. Even dogs and cats may shed tears if wounded, and when they are lonely, they howl piteously. When it comes to physical pain or hunger or thirst, humans are surely the same as other animals. That's why we experience a keen sense of empathy and great affection for other living creatures on the planet, be they dogs, cats, horses, or cows. But that also means that pain alone tells us little about what it means to truly be human. Now, I think that's true to a certain extent. I think those innate feelings of pain, hunger allow us to identify with the pain and hunger of other animals and allow us to have that connection with other animals, but I don't. Granted, this is a novel about being human, so they're not going to go there, but I watched this documentary.
Also, remember the time when this was being written.
This is also, a timing thing. So, I watched this documentary about this lioness who was outcast from her pride because her mate was killed by a coalition of males, and she had to leave or let her cubs be killed and assimilate into the new pride. So instead of letting the males kill her cubs, she leaves with her cubs and tries to make it on her own. And at one point, something happens and one of her cubs gets trampled by a water buffalo and her back breaks. So the lioness is trying to walk along with this cub, walking on two legs, dragging her feet behind her because she can't use her back legs anymore. And eventually the lioness has to leave her cub behind. And she has to walk away with her cub crying for her. And she has to leave her. And you see her turn back and look, and the cub is crying for her, and she goes forward, and she doesn't look back again. She just keeps going. And then for the next 2 days, all this lioness does is just roar and cry. And I think there's an aspect of animal pain and emotion and mental anguish that is really not explored. Because to me, watching that, it's plain as day. She had to leave her child behind, and it was devastating.
I remember the documentary you're talking about.
Yeah, Jeremy Irons narrates it.
Yeah. I can't remember what it's called.
It's called The Last Lion. I highly recommend it. It's very good.
Yeah, I recommend it too because it is heart-wrenching, but the thing is a documentary, but it plays out like it's a movie. Like there's literally this enemy lion who's like tracking them down, and it has this big scar on its face and
one
everything, or one eye. Yeah,
she's the dominant female of the new pride, and she and the other lionesses are on this lone lioness's trail, and they're like hunting her. And this lone lioness has these 3 cubs, and she's trying to just make it on her own. And
this
is a western. This sounds like a western.
Right. The lioness looks like a James Bond villain, you know, missing the eye, all mangled and everything.
Her eye is literally milky white and stuff. And
this straight up sounds like a pulp novel that I would find.
It's like so good. But that's the moment that really just hits me to the core, because it's literally the best example I can have of that I've seen of an, other than maybe elephants mourning their dead, or dolphins mourning the death of their offspring when their babies die too young, you know. But this is
intense for sure.
It's the best example I can come up with of an animal that is not considered to be of higher human intelligence expressing extreme grief and agony. And it's incredible. Dogs too, right? Dogs. Dan, you make a good example. Dogs, elephants, whales, dolphins, chimpanzees, primates. But this is a cat.
I think most people who have been on the internet have probably seen the video or the still of, like, I think is it a gazelle with the cheetah like licking it, or a leopard just like licking it, and it's just standing there letting this cheetah just rub on it and everything, and I think it started out like, oh, they're friends and everything, and someone actually posted the documentary from it. What happened was,
I think it was a leopard.
A
I don't think it was a cheetah. I
Okay.
think it was a leopard because a
Well,
cheetah would.
I will.
It makes it more believable. I think it was a leopard. It makes more sense that it would be. Sorry.
All right, so I'm gonna.
Science,
Or it might have been
zoology,
It
and
might have been an impala. I'm just gonna call it an impala for now. I may be wrong on that. But the actual video shows that this impala and its baby were running away from this cheetah or leopard, whatever, this big cat, and it was gonna catch the baby. The baby was too slow, so the mom just stopped so that the cheetah would catch it.
leopard.
Its leopard, this leopard would catch it, and its baby was able to get away.
Wow, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a debate in animal behavior and zoology as far as what are the origins of animal altruism, where does altruism come from, is it, and a lot of animal
Cheetah.
behaviorists believe that it was
Okay, so it is a cheetah. Just correction, I had to know. It is.
There
a
is
cheetah.
a story about a leopard doing that with a baby, though.
No, the story with the leopard and the baby was the leopard like let the baby go, then it caught it, and it was like playing with it.
Yeah.
No, the one with the cheetah is this impala was running away with its baby.
Now I see it. Okay.
And instead of letting its baby be caught and eaten by the cheetah, the impala just stopped and let its baby run on so that the cheetahs would eat it.
Now, the typical animal behaviorist would say that that is purely evolutionary drive to continue on the next generation and further on your own genetics.
Mm-hmm.
Is it that, or is there maybe a little more than that to that?
I think the
either way,
deeper emotion and feeling is derived from that. I'm not saying that that emotion and feeling isn't there.
But what if that too isn't a result of evolution?
Exactly. That's what it is.
To further the genetics.
That's what those feelings are. Just
Either
like
way,
pain is the way of saying that something is wrong in the body.
Like, hey, my tooth is rotting out of my skull. Do something about it.
Or you did something wrong where you didn't stand up for your friend. Don't do that again.
Right. Did you guys talk about the mom story?
No, and I want to because this was awesome, this part.
I absolutely loved this.
Oh yeah, I've been waiting to bring this up because I was really moved by the mother's story of the old woman climbing the stairs, struggling with what she was carrying. And just to recap, the mother was like, I'll help her. But the timing was never right. Every time she wanted to help, the woman was already one step higher, and it was kind of like Copper in the snowy field. He couldn't help.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just awkward, and it wasn't ever the right moment.
Yeah, I think the mom's story most people can relate to more, because I think that's definitely happened where you're like, oh, this person looks like they need help, I'll step in now, but then something stops you, like, wait, would that be weird? It's gonna be awkward.
I think the thing about the mom's story is that it's so real and so relatable because everyone has had some kind of experience like that. And the way that the writer describes it is just so relatable.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's a very Japanese experience too, which I also really loved. All the little details talking about her geta sandals and her tabi socks and how she wears her belt around her kimono. Like, it was essentially very Japanese, but at the same time, very translatable about cultures throughout other cultures, which again feeds into, I think, the Buddhism chapter, right?
Yeah, I think these chapters like merge.
But I just want to say really quickly, why I like this so much was not the story itself, but the way the mother treated the memory of the story. She didn't let it haunt her and like, oh, I did such a bad thing. She took it as a sign of like a couple different things. Like, first off, there's always room for improvement. You could always move forward the next day and try to help people on the next day. And she just took the whole experience. I'm just looking at the text, but We have to work to nurture that which is good and beautiful in our own hearts.
Right.
And to derive that from such a humdrum moment is,
Incredible.
I think, really cool. Yeah, so cool.
I think also this demonstrates what a good mother she is. Because she's watching Copper this whole time and she knows he's sick and he's not talking. And she knows that there's something else going on other than the fact that he's sick. But she doesn't come at him directly. She just sits there and looks at him, and she just knows that he's had one of these moments. And so she decides to commiserate with him and show him that she understands by just telling a story of something that happened with her without any judgment, without any criticism, without any assumptions about what happened with him. She just sits there and tells the story. And in doing that, and in relating that, and in relating about what she learns about cultivating the beauty of spirit, she's showing and teaching Copper without berating him or making him feel judged or looked at under a microscope. And to me, it was just a masterstroke for a parent to teach a child without seemingly teaching a child. And it was just brilliant all the way around, because you don't really get anything about the mom up until this point, right?
I think this is a
don't
good
get
time
a lot
to bring it up. I think this story, I think I've said this to you. Maybe I said it. The story is one of those where it's like a life stages book. You could read this at all these different life stages and take something different away from it. Like, you could read it as a 15-year-old and take these lessons away that Copper did. You could read it as an adult, probably lean more towards like his uncle and his reasoning. But I think right now, as a parent, I really see the parenting style that both his uncle is using on him and his mom. And it's teaching you the proper way to parent too, and teach these lessons, I think.
Right. Don't judge. Don't make assumptions. Let the child find their own way through your guidance and suggestions. And Dan, that is great. I love that little reference. Copper stands out. Fox and the Hound. There are some similarities in the story perceived.
Yeah.
That's great. Copper and Todd.
I love that. Fox and the Hound. I love that movie.
Oh, me too. Makes me cry though.
I used to watch that one.
I watched that one a lot.
101 Dalmatians. And
101
there was another one.
Dalmatians, yeah.
But I used to watch those like over and over on repeat.
I used to like run around on my house on all fours when I was little and like tell people like, I'm a hound dog. Just like Copper. Yeah. Fox and the Hound was a big deal.
I have a very similar story where there was a period where I was convinced that I was Snoopy from the Peanuts comics.
Yeah.
Brown.
Oh my God.
And I was at school and I was in like, I don't know, 2nd grade. And I told the bus driver that my name was Snoopy. And she was like, no, it's not. And I was like, yes, it is. It's Snoopy. My name is Snoopy.
I used to tell people I was Pongo all the time. I was Pongo from 101 Dalmatians for like 6 months. And I would bark at people.
Oh, that's awesome.
I would literally bark at people.
Oh, I feel for your mom.
And then, yeah. And then, like, I'd be like, I'm a hound dog. I would do that too. I didn't want to be Todd. I wanted to be Copper. I don't know why. I guess I wanted to be a bloodhound. I don't know. Moving on, though. Chapter 8 is a triumphant return. And it is a relatively short chapter in which Copper feels better. And his friends come to his house and pretty much everyone reconciles with each other.
Mhm.
And Copper reads the letter from oh my god, Katsuko.
I was gonna say, I remember how her name is spelled, but I'm afraid to say
Katsuko.
it, especially in front of you. It's gonna get torn apart.
And he's been kind of like anxious and worried about whether or not they got the letter, and then they all show up and they're all just happy to see that he feels better, and they're kind of just like, water under the bridge, buddy, we're just happy you're better, we totally get it, it's fine. And Copper is just like trying to come to terms with the fact that, like, oh, you guys are cool with this, it's okay. And then Katsuko writes the letter, and I think the part of the letter that really stood out to me was when she says, "When I read the letter, I was very moved. I thought that my little brother is lucky to have a person this conscientious as a friend." Because Katsuko realizes the psychology and thought process behind the letter that Copper wrote. She, I think, saw the anguish and the regret and the guilt in what Copper was trying to say. And I think Katsuko realized, like, you know, your friend Copper really is a very introspective, good person who made a mistake.
Yeah. I think also a little bit more low key, this chapter is really saying, like, a lot of the problems that we have are problems we create. Like, Copper just spent 2 weeks blowing this up like it was the end of their friendship.
It was very Crime and Punishment. It was very anguish, but
Yeah.
any one of us has done that with their friends and been like,
Well, yeah.
God, they're never gonna be friends with me again.
But really the situation is just like, no, we're cool.
But it also demonstrates what good human beings are, his friends are, that they're willing to just take in the fact that he choked. He had a moment where he choked. And they're understanding, and they're like, it's okay, dude. We still love you. We're still your friend. It's all good. You know, I think it's a two-way thing where Copper is agonizing over this, and then his friends are like, yo, it's all good. And everyone can just come back together and say, like, someone making a mistake and making a bad decision in the moment isn't anything that's going to tear us apart. And I think that's the crux of this chapter, that Copper realizes, like, they still accept me and they still love me, even though I did make a mistake. And it was an honest mistake, right?
Yeah.
You are welcome, Dan. I am glad that you enjoyed the Fox and the Hound moment. Sorry.
I think it's also not only showing a good person, but good friends.
Good friends, yeah.
To forgive him.
And I'll just go a little My Little Pony here and say, the power of friendship.
Oh my god.
Twilight Sparkle.
Let's just be glad Miyazaki's making a version of this and not the people who made My Little Pony.
Friendship is Magic. It's a good show. You stop. It's a good show.
Are you saying you're a brony? Is that
what
you're saying?
I'm not a I'm a lady, first of all, so
just
I can't.
Messing with you.
You cannot be a brony.
You're a Brody.
I'm just joking.
I am totally into Friendship is Magic. That show is awesome.
I can say is that
Noelle, you would totally appreciate the mythology, the rules. Oh, yeah. There is a place called Canterlot, okay? All of the places are horse puns.
Okay, I might have to check this out then.
I've
encountered a couple bronies in my day,
and
they were a little insufferable. I don't know. I kind of like judged the show based on them.
You can't judge the show on the bronies. Ew.
I know. Discord
is literally the best character. All the core 6 ponies, they're all so good. Like, the The world building on that show is literally so good, and you don't expect it to be, but it is so good.
Well, we speak for the 2000s version. There's a new version out.
No, I don't want to talk about the new version. I'm talking about Friendship is Magic, Twilight Sparkle, Pinkie Pie, Applejack, Rarity, Rainbow Dash, and Fluttershy.
Jesus, you remember all of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on. Princess Cadence of the Crystal Kingdom, Princess Luna, Princess Celestia.
What is this? Game of Thrones or something?
It's Queen.
It's Pony Game of Thrones with less violence and more love and friendship. Telling you.
Okay.
There's
Well,
also
you sold me. You sold me.
We'll have to talk about My Little Pony sometime. It's a solid show.
You know it also proposes love and friendship.
There's also like zombie ponies, okay? There's like
Wait, when the hell were there zombie
You
ponies?
There's like zombie ponies and like undead ponies.
Don't know. You know how many episodes of that I watched with Ramona?
Well, you were paying attention, obviously.
Are there
because...
vampire ponies?
No.
Okay. Then I'm out.
But there is a pony. You gotta at least stick around
I'm just kidding.
You gotta stick around for Maud. Maud is great.
Okay.
No, I do not love My Little Pony more than Game of Thrones, Dan.
I just remember Big Mac. Yep.
Big Macintosh. Oh my god, Applejack owns an apple farm, and all of her family members all have apple names, like Granny Smith, Big Macintosh.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. And they and the apple stuff, and there's like swamp crocodile creatures and there's also a derp pony. Like a literal derp pony.
There is a vampire pony in the 80s version.
I watch 80s Transformers.
Really?
I don't watch 80s ponies. Sorry. I just watched the 80s Transformers. That was the Hasbro I watched, was the Transformers. I didn't watch the old My Little Pony. Sorry. I only watched Friendship is Magic. We are way off topic.
Now let's see how friendship can be magic in How Do You Live? And how Buddhism can show us love and compassion.
Are we on the next chapter?
I think so. We pretty much covered it. That chapter is basically them reconciling the whole issue.
Hold up 2 seconds for me.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So we're on to chapter 9, which is called Daffodils and Buddhas.
Yes.
And I like, just as a quick aside, I like how each chapter title is like 2 things. Well, for the most part. You know, like in the beginning, it's like, oh, I don't know. There's a couple of those, I guess. Oh, jeez, now I can't find anything.
Oh, right.
Yeah, like Newton's apple and powdered milk. That was one of them.
Yeah.
I like that. I don't know why I like it, but I like it.
Like what?
So, actually, since you mentioned powdered milk, I'll lead off with saying this. Wait, is this when...
Oh, the powdered milk.
Is this when they talk about why the statue was made by the Greeks in this chapter?
This is where they talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
So I like how this kind of
so heavy this chapter.
Back. It some of it kind of felt like a textbook. I'm not gonna lie. But
I loved that. I loved the whole textbook thing of it. It reminded me of art history. Dan Williams. I was born in 1990. Okay, I'm sorry I wasn't old enough to watch the 80s cartoons in the 80s, but I was born in 1990 and I watched my fair share of things. Okay? And the 1980s Transformers was the pinnacle of 1980s animation. Transformers, more than meets the eye.
You know what else more than meets the eye?
Robots,
the Buddha statues. So
yes, Buddha statues. I'm sorry.
I like kind of the throwback to the powdered milk in that the Buddha statues are this culmination of multiple cultures and people working together to create what Copper now knows as the Buddha.
And, this was a really insightful chapter. I didn't even know this stuff.
I don't know. I saw all this like reference back to the earlier chapters, like everything's kind of coming full circle because of the powdered milk. It was made in Australia and all these people in the supply chain before it gets to Copper, and how they all are involved in Copper's life, even though Copper will never meet them. They'll never know about Copper. The same thing with the Buddha. These people, these Greeks made the statue in kind of their outlook, or their not their
Right, and they were only there
Style.
because
yeah.
Alexander conquered and they settled there, and then they spent time there, and
then some trader traveled across Russia and everything else to get to Japan.
I think the story, excuse me, I think the historical lesson of how these ancient Buddha were created is a literal historical manifestation of Copper's theory and idea of human net connection and the ocean of humanity progressing forward.
Mm-hmm.
And the historical aspect of it is brilliant and this and that, but personally, have you ever read Siddhartha by
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorite books. Yeah, it really is.
Herman Hesse, right? Herman Hesse.
Yeah, Herman Hesse, who's written some other
really
bangers,
good stuff, right?
But Siddhartha I come back to a lot because it's awesome.
And you get the uncle telling the story of Siddhartha and the origins of Buddhism, and then you get the migration of humanity, this and that, and the transmutation of culture, and almost like the transmutation of culture and the traveling of humanity, and the idea that the transmutation of culture and humanity can only do anything but enhance humanity and push it forward.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I love Siddhartha.
Oh, it's such a good book. It's such a good book.
Yeah. It's when
my favorite part is when Siddhartha finally sits under the Bodhi tree and the whole experience of Nirvana. That whole, like, if I could quote that whole thing, I would, because it's just so brilliant.
That is good. My favorite part is the river, definitely, when he's crossing the river with the ferryman.
Yes,
and he's like, "Are you sure you want to cross the river?" He's like, "Yeah," and the river. He's like, "Okay, but if you ever want to cross it again, I'll be here." And it's just really cool. I don't know, the way he describes it is just really awesome.
I also love this conversation of East meets West, because you always have. And it's still true to this day, this whole East versus West, and they're separate, and they're separate, and they're this and that. But the ancient sculpture reveals that they're not that separate, that there can be that flow and connectivity and union.
Yeah, and the uncle says something very similar to that. Oh gosh, I have to find it. Because it's like right on point with that.
I also want to talk about the Daffodil.
And its great journey.
I want to talk about the Daffodil, but also I really quick also want to ask Dan Williams, Autobot or Decepticon? This is an important question, Dan. Autobot or Decepticon? Think about it before you answer, because I will judge you based on how you answer. Okay.
Autobots.
Noel, Autobots or Decepticons?
They're both cool. I mean, like,
you gotta pick
a cool, even though he like never dies. He just is like always around, I guess. I mean, I never really watched the shows, to be quite honest. I've seen the horrible movies.
Oh man, the movies are so bad.
The movies are awful.
They're garbage for the most part. I mean, like, the first one maybe had its moments, but that's just because it was a novel concept
Right, it was the first one.
Screen movie.
It was the
The
first,
first
and then it
one-
was just all downhill from there.
The first one I could kind of laugh at. It was so bad. And like Shia LaBeouf's acting in it is just so outrageous.
The parents, too.
And the
It was the
parent.
first time you saw the parents,
But-
and there was some novel appeal to the parent.
But the following movies, like, I couldn't even get behind that cliche.
I know. Oh God, I gave up. I probably after the second one. Maybe I saw bits of the others. I don't know.
I think I watched the second or third one time because it was on TV. I was just
Wait,
flipping
was the
through.
third one? The third one was where they go to the moon, and it was like the JFK moon project was like a secret conspiracy to find the robots on the dark side of the moon. Is that one?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Or was it the
Okay.
Dinobots? Dinobots
Oh
came back
God,
in
I
one.
don't even know.
Dan, I am extremely disappointed. Decepticons, all the way. For life. Dinobots,
No,
being the
you be
exception.
you, Dan. Bumblebee's awesome.
Bumblebee sucks, and he is the most annoying character in the whole series. Bumblebee is literally the worst.
Well,
only
I
'cause you
can't
spend
find
the
that
most time.
quote from the uncle, but it was something to the effect of, "We should all try to aspire to a world where we can all be friends." On some
Oh, I think
No,
that's
no,
the
no,
last
no.
line.
That's in the last chapter. That's a Copper quote.
Oh,
That's fine.
okay, I'm
That's
sorry.
fine.
Okay. But
Um,
that is just okay. Anyway,
so-
moving on.
Let's real quick before we get on to the last chapter, I want to talk about the daffodil.
Oh yeah.
So Copper goes out into the yard and he's just kind of living in the moment and experiencing the beauty and wonder of nature, and he's replanting all the daffodils, and then he finds one and he has to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig and dig until he comes down to the very, very deep bottom of the root, and he realizes that the bulb had no choice but to grow. It grew despite all odds. It refused not to grow. And it fills Copper with such an overwhelming emotion. And then he starts to talk to it and tell it things. And it's very much an allegory for humanity. That despite all the odds, you push forward. Even if you have everything against you, the will to live, to continue, to progress, you keep pushing. And Copper finds this in an everyday houseplant. And it overwhelms him because I think Copper realizes it's not just humanity, but it's life. Pushes.
Yeah, I like how he digs out the daffodil and replants it next to the other daffodils.
Yeah, even
'cause
though it's
he's
it's a little bit weird and it's a little bit different, but it still has a place amongst all the rest.
Yeah, and I mean, look at what it achieved in its own way. Like, why not put it with its colleagues? I guess.
Yeah,
you could say.
yeah.
I also think it kind of represented belief a bit too. Because I mean, it started so deep. And just he describes it just in the darkness, reaching up, knowing that it'll reach the light. You know, he knew when it was time to grow.
It believed it would make it.
And it had to keep going, even through the dark, the solid earth, to make it to the light.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good analogy for, you know, anything in life, really. You know, you're like, well, you see, like, I guess I could use the Olympics as a good example. You know, you see these people in the spotlight only for a minute. What you don't see is the 20 years of struggle and failures that they had to go through in order to become that good and get there.
I think they even
That's
mentioned
kind
it
of
in this
about it.
book. Katsuko is working on being an Olympic long jumper
Yeah.
and has spent years and years and years working at it. Like, there are echoes of that example in the book.
Yeah, I kind of got that from the Dandelion too, you know. He says that no one sees you doing all that work as you're growing out, just a little bit on top.
Is what people say.
But how much that plant had to do to get that little bit.
Or Uragawa with the tofu.
Yeah.
His expert tofu-ness. And Dan Williams, your Slytherin hate, I will not tolerate. I'm just saying. Slytherins are not all bad. There are some very good Slytherins among us, including some of my favorite characters.
No, he isn't.
I was reading an
Wow, way to
article-
assume it was Snape I was talking about. Okay. Because I can't say Snape was a good guy without inciting some riot. I was going to talk about Slughorn, but okay.
I actually read an interesting article about how Narcissa Malfoy actually turns the tide. So, like,
She does.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
With her denial. Her denial
that's
changes
a
the game.
Game-changing moment. Oh my god. Yeah, it totally
When
gives Harry the element of surprise that he needs to win.
That act in that book, when she turns to Voldemort and says, he's dead.
He's dead.
Right after asking, my son, is he alive? It's the perfect representation and repetition of the big theme. What is a mother willing to do for the love of her son? Why does Narcissa do that? Narcissa does that because she asks Harry, is my son alive? And Harry says, he risks it, and he says, Draco is alive.
He does risk it. He does risk it. Oh
And
my
Narcissa, in the knowledge, knowing that her son is alive, and all she needs to do to get to her son is to stare Voldemort in the face and lie to him, I feel like that mother's love masks his legitimacy and his abilities, and she says he's dead because she doesn't really care about the cause or anything else, but she loves her son, and she
we know
wants
that love
to find
is
her son.
Voldemort's weakness too.
Right.
So, like, you know, if she's acting out of love, then of course
He's not going to see it.
Legitimens is not going to pick up on that.
But I think it's her love that is such strong magic that he's not going to penetrate it anyway.
Well, that's just a great theme of the books anyway, is that love is literally magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little off topic.
How did we get onto Harry Potter?
I don't know.
How
it
could this
happens all the
possibly
time.
happen?
Weren't we gonna start the last chapter?
All right, let's get on to the next chapter. So the next chapter is, we talked about daffodils and Buddhas.
Yep.
The next chapter should be the last one.
So the next chapter is the last one, and it's called Spring Morning. And we talk about spring.
This isn't the last one, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's
It
just
is.
that's the translator's notes.
So I think they chose Spring Morning because spring is renewal. It's the birth of life, etc., etc. And you have this huge description of Copper's observations of nature, but you get a lot of Copper's observations of nature throughout the novel. And I think that's a very Japanese thing. Because I feel like the observations of nature are supposed to reveal something about the inner workings of oneself. Because you've noticed, like, even in the chapter where he goes to Mizutani's house, they talk about the bay and the sparkling water and all of that stuff. Like, I think the physical descriptions of the environment reflect
what's going
what
they
on
say.
in the characters.
We're just the universe experiencing itself.
Right.
Yeah,
I think that's what
classic tool anyway. That's a classic motif.
But I think I think it's very potent in Japanese literature specifically because you have characters that mean simultaneously emotions and physical objects in nature at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And
so I think that's very telling of the translation as well, that you get all of these very specific descriptions.
And you're talking about what Copper writes, but I think I love the fact that Copper has a notebook now. And
it's like a rite of passage.
Yeah, it kind of brings it full circle, the flow of the water in the uncle.
A rite of passage.
Aha! That's nice. I like that. Yeah, this flow, the uncle has basically done his Napoleon, by making this notebook for him. He's set Copper up to be a good person, and he's passed along the notebook so that Copper can then pass that along. Hopefully someday.
It's very interesting, though, that
Well, his mother got him the notebook, but
Copper is up before everyone else. And it's kind of a parallel to the original chapter. Copper is up before everyone, before the wave of humanity starts to crash in. And he listens to the quiet, and then he listens to the nightingale, and the line that struck me about the nightingale was, it wasn't asking anyone to listen, but seemed happy just to sing, enjoying its own voice. It reminded me of the Walt Whitman quote, like, I sing myself, this, like, the song of myself. Like, I'm not singing for an audience. I'm not singing for any reason other than I'm just happy and singing and just enjoying that. And that Copper recognizes it shows an extreme mental and emotional maturity, that he's really starting to come to understand the world and what it is.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I want to pass it over to you, Noel, because you had that quote that you wanted to tell us that we found out was actually in this one. So if you want to go ahead.
Right. Yeah, so this is Copper's part of his first entry into his notebook. And he says,
this was one thing. I wonder if we're going to quote the same thing, because I wanted to quote one too. Go ahead.
Okay, so he writes, I think there has to come a time when everyone in the world treats each other as if they were good friends. Since humanity has come so far, I think now we will definitely be able to make it to such a place. So I think I want to be a person who can help make that happen. And I just love that. Like the pure just, let's all just stop war and all this. What's the point of all this negativity and enmity? What is it achieving? What's it accomplishing? Not one thing.
Right. It's just pure positivity and belief in the good in humankind.
So that was not the quote I picked. So that's cool. The quote, this is the quote.
The war of quotes, which will be the quote.
No, this is the quote that literally made me bawl my eyes out, and I will probably cry trying to read it. So bear with me. I think I have to try to be a truly great person. As you said, I am a consummate consumer, and I do not produce anything. Unlike Urugawa, I couldn't produce anything if I wanted to. Still, I can become a good person. I can become a good person and create one good person for the world. And I think if I can do just that, then I might become a person who can create more than that. And I think it's Copper's realization that just by virtue of being a good person and being one more good person on the planet, that he is adding value to the entirety of humanity. And I think at the end of the novel, like, he finally gets it when he says, I will never ever forget that my father's last wish was for me to be a great example of a human being. And I think he finally understands what it means to be a good person. And that sometimes just being a good person is enough. You don't have to be Napoleon. You don't have to be Michelangelo. As long as you're a good enough person and treat other individuals with positivity and love and gratitude, that's enough. And the uncle teaches that with Uragawa and Mizutani
And Katami too. Katami and his sister.
Mhm.
Or
And
no, well,
Mizutani and his sister.
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
But also Katami too, because Katami is kind of more feisty of a character,
Right.
Mhm.
but he still is a good person. Like he stands up for what he believes in.
Right, and he doesn't back down, and he's strong in his convictions, and he's not willing
Yeah.
to back down for anyone.
This is kind of a throwback to a previous chapter, but we definitely saw where he got it from when they were talking about his father.
Oh my god, yeah, totally.
You're grounded and you won't change my mind.
Oh, when he said that,
Yeah.
no one can change my mind. I'm like, that's where you get that
Yep.
from.
Yeah. That was funny.
But yeah, 100%. I mean, I feel like they could have ended the whole story on that quote alone. I'm
But
glad
they
they
didn't.
didn't. I'm glad they didn't. But yeah, like that was a super powerful quote, and I think it would have been good enough to just end it there.
Right.
But
then they take it out further, and then they say,
they ask the reader directly, yeah.
how do
Yeah.
you live? Which I think is kind of like using
cool.
the entire novel as an uncle's notebook, that by the time you're done reading it, you sit there and you ask yourself all these questions that the uncle asked Copper, like, how do you live? Do you do this? Do you ask
It's an
these
interesting
questions?
question because you could take it in two ways, right? Like, how do you live? Like, as basically, like, how should one live? Like, how should one live their life? But
Right.
the other way you could take it is just, how do you live? What are you doing in your life? Do you see the difference there? It's like, it's not so
Yeah.
much an instruction
Yeah.
manual. It's a genuine inquiry as to, like, well, what do you do?
And the idea
Yeah,
of the
the
book
whole-
is to have the reader genuinely do an introspective inventory of how they feel about all the things that they ask. Like, the uncle brings up in his last entry the idea of basic morality, that animals don't have basic morality, but humans do. And morality is a compass that's just inherent, and you understand inherently what's right and what's wrong, right? And there are all these questions asked throughout the novel. They ask Copper, but I think they're also tried to be geared toward the reader of like, well, because the uncle always says, well, what do you think about this? And I want you to think about this. And I think he's asking Copper, but he's also asking the reader, well, what do you think about Napoleon? What do you think about
Galileo or whatever.
Galileo and
or
Copernicus?
Sorry, whatever it is. Yeah.
And what do you think about the fact that the Greeks created the first Buddhist statues and this melding of East and West?
I almost feel like this is a teaching tool to teach you how to look inside yourself and kind of be honest with yourself and ask yourself questions. The whole time you're seeing from an outside perspective about how Copper is looking at these things, whether it's breaking down the supply chain and how everything's connected, or really diving down and understand why he's having the feelings he's feeling. I think the ending kind of is like, I've shown you how to do it, now do it.
Right.
Copper's, you're no longer seeing what Copper thinks. You have to ask yourself these questions too.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree. I love what you said about how it's almost a teaching tool to introspect, because and especially for younger kids, because 14, 15, like the Copper is about 15, right?
Yeah.
So that's when you first start, I don't know, for me around that age, that's when I was first like, I don't know, I felt like my mind was just like expanding more.
Yeah.
And I was like, more than when I was younger than that.
You're getting more freedoms. You have to start thinking, what are you going to do with your life? And things are changing.
How are you going to make your mark on the world?
Yeah.
Yes,
so
Dan.
I would definitely advocate for people to tell kids to read this book. I mean, I am a big fan of this book. I think people should definitely read it, no matter what age you are.
You
but
can gain
especially
something out of it.
kids.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I loved this book. Dan,
It is my favorite book of 2021, hands
Dan,
down.
I'm just gonna
Nothing
say,
changes.
hit me up in my Discord and we'll talk about why the Greeks built the first Buddhist statues, or just read How Do We Live, because the Greeks, it was a very interesting historical lesson. Let me just put it that
they
way.
explained it.
They do explain it in the novel how the Greeks made the first Buddhist statues, and now, it's pretty awesome.
I actually kind of want to look that up just to confirm.
Well,
that
I do know
is accurate.
Because
going by
one of the things that they talk about are the Buddha statues that are located in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And okay.
You okay?
Yeah, I needed to take an emotional breath. So the Buddha statues that are in Afghanistan that they talk about have been destroyed by the Taliban. So they don't exist anymore. And it's very sad. And I've read a number of books about Afghanistan, about the people. I've read quite a bit. All of it's been animal based, but there is still a very modern Afghan historical context to it, because it's all been nonfiction, but it's been animal related. And they talk about the destruction of the Buddha statues in Afghanistan, and those statues in Afghanistan were some of the most important Buddha statues out there, and the Taliban destroyed them. And it's just very sad. And the examples that they talked about when I was reading about this, and they talked about Peshawar and the river and this and that, the Kabul River, I knew exactly what they were talking about. And all I could think of is they spent all this time unearthing this and discovering this and making this connection, and exactly what the uncle said happened. They destroyed them, and they're gone. And they were some of the most magnificent Buddha statues around.
Well, that's a travesty.
It's just very sad. It's just very sad. And Afghanistan itself is a very interesting place. And from what I've read about the history, etc., the people of Afghanistan are incredibly courageous and passionate and strong, and they have been through hell. And it's unfortunate.
It's also a very beautiful place.
It's a gorgeous place.
I feel like a lot of propaganda tends to just show pictures of like deserts and just Death Valley looking.
And Afghanistan really not. I read a nonfiction story about tracking snow leopards in Afghanistan, and there are snow leopards in Afghanistan, and it is a very vital corridor for snow leopards. But all of the disruption and politics and war is wreaking havoc for the snow leopard population, and global warming is pushing the snow leopards in Afghanistan further north, but it is also pushing the leopards further north, so that the snow leopards and the leopards are having to compete with each other, and the snow leopards are losing out because the leopards are much more adaptable cats than the snow leopards. Snow leopards are a much more specialized carnivore. They're just a much more specialized animal, whereas a leopard is much more adaptable to multiple environments.
Well,
anyway, I feel like that's kind of a segue.
It's time for us to really ask, how do you live?
How do you live? Ask yourself that question.
We just ended on that. That was...
No, because we got to say what the next book is.
I know. I'm just saying that was like a perfect ending.
It's great.
Yeah. Just last thoughts on How Do You Live? So awesome. The kind of book that can quell any sense of sadness or depression, because it just instills in you feelings of, not that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
It's
That's-
uplifting and it's hopeful.
yeah.
It makes you want to be a better person.
Yeah, I think I read this at the right time because I just, as we kind of alluded to before, I and maybe you guys too, I don't know, I tend to struggle with my depressing feelings.
Dude,
So,
who are you talking to?
Yeah, we've talked about this enough.
That's what I'm
but,
saying. Like, I'm depressed
so-
AF all the time.
Yeah, it's tough, and I know maybe some people watching this stream feel the same way. I don't know, but read this book if you are, because like I said, this came into my life at the right time, and I don't know. I just think this was a great recommendation. 10 out of 10, easy.
Oh
Easy.
yeah,
10 out of 10 for sure. Absolutely love this book.
I think no matter your gender, age, religion, you can pick up this book and there's something to take away from it.
Absolutely. And yes, Dan, you did spell Noel correctly. All right. So, it's my turn to pick a novel. Although this isn't a novel. I did not pick a novel. And it was very much inspired by How Do You Live? Dan. Life. Don't talk to me about life. Marvin. Hitchhiker's Guide.
I know.
Yeah. All right.
We should
Oh
read
yeah,
that
Marvin, the depressed robot.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love that character.
He's my
He's
favorite.
one of my
Voiced by
favorites.
Alan Rickman. As
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Um,
May he rest in peace. One of the many
man,
love.
That makes me want to reread Hitchhikers. There's so many great Marvin lines that I just
Listen,
can't remember.
All right,
them.
never mind. We're gonna read Hitchhikers.
No,
Let's read Hitchhikers now.
Hitchhiker's Guide is something we've kind of been mediating to put on the channel for a hot minute, so maybe we can do something with Hitchhiker's Guide down the road. But the book I picked is to kind of take How Do You Live and kick it into high gear.
I don't know. This was kind of like a 6th gear book.
This is like 20th gear.
We were
this book.
redlining on this book.
Noel, I feel like you and I are gonna jive hardcore on this book, and Evan may struggle a little bit because he's not a spiritual person. But I feel like you and I are gonna be jiving on this hardcore. Okay, but anyway, the book is called The Snow Leopard by Peter Matheson. It is a memoir.
Should we show the book? Here, wait, I got a copy.
I'll show the book. I got it right
you got
here.
it, okay.
The Snow Leopard. Penguin Classics Edition. With sticky notes from where I marked quotes from before. And when I read it again, I will mark it full of sticky notes, more so than ever. So I will just read the blurb real quick so everyone kind of knows what we're getting into. By the way, George Schaller is by far and away one of my favorite zoologists of all time. He's a big cat guy. He's a proponent of animal rights. I love this man. Anyway. In 1973, Peter Matheson and field biologist George Schaller traveled high into the remote mountains of Nepal to study the Himalayan blue sheep and possibly glimpse the rare and beautiful snow leopard. Matheson, a student of Zen Buddhism, was also on a spiritual quest to find the Lama of She at the ancient shrine on Crystal Mountain. As the climb proceeds, Matheson charts his inner path as well as his outer one, with a deepening Buddhist understanding of reality, suffering, impermanence, and beauty. An unforgettable spiritual journey through the Himalayas, The Snow Leopard is perhaps the crowning achievement of Peter Matheson's remarkable body of writing.
Yes, I mean, this sounds very interesting to me. I mean, it's going right off the track of the Buddhism. You know how do you live kind of ended on a Buddhist note in some ways,
Yeah, I
and
think it's
some.
a perfect kind of.
Oh
That's
yeah,
why I picked this book, because I feel like this ended kind of on a Buddhist trend, and then this
Picks up.
yeah, I'm very excited.
will kind of take it and launch it in a new direction. And I think you and I will totally revel in it and gel in it. I do think you may struggle a little bit, but at the same time, I feel like there will be a lot of scientific elements and other things that'll get you in.
I understand spirituality, especially Buddhism. I've like looked a lot into Buddhism,
But you're always so down on it, so I don't know how you're gonna like react to stuff, because you're always just
down on it. I just see the connection to the modern world and how its teachings kind of relate to life, kind of like the.
All right,
we
so
know
maybe you
now
will be
that-
really into this.
We know now that the whole keeping a positive outlook is not due to bad energy or anything like that. It's the cortisol, that sort of thing. You know, it's technically the teaching is right. There's a scientific explanation behind it. So
Oh my
I go
God.
more towards
Okay.
the scientific explanation.
All right,
of things.
so
That's all.
this book goes into that whole quandary of spiritual science, and
Look, I figured out the pensieve. I'll figure out whatever this book can. throw
you
at
don't even know what this book is. You are not ready for what
You
this
talked
book
to me
is.
about it a lot.
Okay, well,
Kind of know a
yeah,
bit about
but
it.
you are not ready. You're just really not ready to read the words themselves.
I am ready. I am very ready.
Noelle is ready. Noelle is ready. I am ready. This is, well, actually, okay.
So what's the plan? So okay,
Yeah,
so
I was
how long
just-
is it?
I was just gonna say, so let's figure out what we want to have done for next week, yeah?
Yeah.
Let's see. Because I know my ass is gonna be taking extensive notes and covering this shit in sticky notes. So I don't know how Nana's gonna read it.
Well, maybe you should give it to
See.
him first, since you.
I know. I
already-
was just thinking
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
he should read it first, because I'm gonna cover everything and everything.
So yeah, would next Thursday be our last live stream before Christmas then?
If we want, I mean, I could do the 23rd, but up to you guys. I
all
really
right.
don't mind.
I'm
really-
no, we wouldn't be able to do the 23rd. So yeah, next week will be our last set of live streams
Yep,
until
the week of the 27th.
yeah.
Are you
I
good?
will be.
No, you're
I
gone.
will be unavailable that week.
That's right, because you're
so-
gone.
Yeah, I'll be gone for that whole week of the 27th.
All right, so should we just reconvene and then a new year?
So we'll do the 16th.
Now, well, here's the thing. We want to do something different for the 16th so that we can just start this in the new year. So we're
Because
not.
it might be too much of a time jump.
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
what
I agree. Maybe we should just do something different. Maybe we should just have like a chat or some kind of theme of something.
Yeah. Well, we
Other
could
than
we
okay.
could yeah, we could do what we were talking about doing, kind of like a talk show thing.
Oh
I
man,
mean, I'll bring up some news articles and stuff we can talk about for sure.
all is moving,
God.
full of power, full of light.
So,
Sorry.
yeah, so the
Is
question.
that a teaser? What's that?
That was just a quote.
Oh.
That was just a little teaser. That was just a little teaser.
So the question I propose to you, Noelle, and you kind of, is how do you feel about a 1984 novel remade from a female perspective?
I mean, I would read it. I'd be
Yeah.
all for that.
I would too. This
I
was
can't answer
especially
that
kid-
question.
you should read 1984.
I'm just saying I can't answer that question because I haven't read the book, so I can't validate why that would be a valid question. I'm just saying I can't answer the question.
I heard about this.
Not
So
for good or bad.
the
I just
Orwell
can't-
estate
right, I get
has
you.
approved the rewriting of 1984, but it's going to be written from a female perspective.
Huh.
And I
Who's
heard
the
this.
author?
I'll have to look that up.
We don't know yet. Okay, that's
I don't think so. But yeah, because they just got it approved for this to go through. But no, I was excited about it because it was the first time I heard them saying, "Oh, we're gonna remake this with a female protagonist," because they're actually rewriting the story to fit a female protagonist. They're not just
So question.
slipping in a female in the shoes of the character like they did with Ghostbusters. It's not like a cop out.
I would agree, Dan. I think there needs to be more philosophical books from a female perspective.
Yeah. And I think that's what they're trying to get across with this, which is why I'm super excited to read it.
I'm looking through the book, and the book is divided into the chapters are dates of journal entry.
Okay.
But they're also divided into part. So I think maybe for our next live stream, we should just read the first part, unless you guys want to read more. But I feel like this book is so heavy. It's 315 pages.
So okay, so let's parcel this one out. I think we should parcel this one out a bit more.
Then. So it's not super long, but it's so dense.
It's heavy from what I can tell.
It's super heavy. So I think we should just read the first part until we get to Northward.
Okay.
And that is up to page 63. So read up to page 63. Read page 63. Or depending on the copy you get.
Right.
Up until you get to this section.
Have to check. What is it, Northward?
Northward.
Okay. And again, that's not for next week, but that's for
that's for the new year.
Okay, cool. Yes, and I will do that.
I have bookmarks in here already. The world thus appears to be a complicated tissue of events in which connections of different kinds alternate or overlap or combine and thereby determine the texture of the whole. All phenomena are processes, connections, all is in flux, and at moments this flux is actually visible. See what I mean?
Oh, I'm already into this. Oh my god.
It's very heavy. Yeah, it's very heavy.
This is gonna get so cool. I'm very excited.
I'm super stoked. I'm really excited to share this book with you guys because when I read this book...
You told me about it. You told me about it a while ago.
This book
said it pretty much changed the way you saw a lot of things.
It really did.
I'm all for that. So
this book really got me in a way that very, very few books got me, and I am very excited to reread it and pull out my sticky notes and tab the crap out of it and really get into it. This may be in my top 10. We'll see upon rereading it, but this book is just so incredible. And I'm very excited to put it on the channel and talk about it because I think we can all have some really great conversation about it and really delve into a lot of things. And I'm just very excited.
Plus there's going to be time for whoever wants to join us to read, catch up with us and stuff like that.
Oh, that reminds me, real quick before we get off.
All right, where are you going?
I'm just going away for 2 seconds. I'm going to be back.
Okay. Oh yeah, I'm probably going to read this book over the break.
So, I got this book from my Imager Secret Santa, who lives in Germany.
Cool.
And this was the book I told you earlier where I thought, at some point we should all totally read this book.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah.
So this is the book.
Captain Blue Bear.
It's called The 13 and a Half Lives of Captain Bluebear. Quote,
Cool.
equal parts J.K. Rowling, Douglas Adams, and Shel Silverstein.
Sold.
So, I don't even know if I want to give anything else away or read the blurb.
Don't say nothing else. That's
Okay.
all. That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
But I got this book from my Imager Secret Santa, and he told me that it is one of his favorite books of all time, and he sent me a copy. He also sent me a copy of his favorite game of all time, which I'm thinking when you come by, you know, we can...
Maybe we'll stream that on the...
We'll stream that. We'll play that.
Twitch channel.
That could be fun.
Angela, hello, and thank you for the $4.99 donation.
Angela, thank you so much for the donation.
How have you been, Angela? We didn't see you tonight.
But this book right here just seems like
it seems fun.
It's just we're if you come over, we're gonna have to look at it for a minute because Evan and I are very excited about this, and I've never even heard of this book before.
No.
And my Imager Secret Santa sent it to me, and he sent me a game, and he sent me these Mozart chocolates. Like, it was very thoughtful, all the things he sent, and I was just like, oh my god, this... I would have never even known about this book if he hadn't sent it to me. And
That's the best, yeah.
I am just so excited for this book. I'm just like, oh, I want to read it. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, I gotta start reading The Snow Leopard, but oh my god, it just looks so wild and fun. Like, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued.
But I know you have the next book after The Snow Leopard already lined up, so...
I thought I did, and then I had a couple other candidates pop up in my head, so maybe we can discuss it when I come around.
All right. Well, fair enough, because we're not starting The Snow Leopard until next year. So,
so we've got time.
Yeah. I am very interested to see what you're thinking, though.
We'll still get together next Thursday. We'll do a stream.
Well, yeah, let's get together. You and Evan and I will think about kind of what we want to do for a stream pre-holidays, and we'll kind of just have some fun.
Yeah, we'll kick back,
And then we'll get together next year with the first part of The Snow Leopard.
Sounds like a plan.
So
I'm in.
Noel will be back Thursday, and then our last stream before Christmas will be Saturday. The next Saturday.
Yeah,
and then we'll be off until the week after Christmas.
Yep.
Or no. Yeah, the week after Christmas.
Well, do you and I want to do a stream during the week? Oh, well, you're going to work, so never mind.
So, yeah. All right. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, everyone, for...
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Dan, for hanging out with us. You had some great input. Dan, I just want to say, it's fun hanging out with you. You're great. You got to come to more streams, because you're a ball. You are so fun. And Angela, thank you so much for the super chat. You have no idea. Thank you very much. And Noel, thank you for just showing up, man.
Well, thank you so much for letting me be a part of this, and it's been really fun.
Heck yeah.
And I can't wait to keep it going. We'll come up with something kind of fun next Thursday, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll get together. We'll figure it out. We'll do something.
All right, so we'll see you next Thursday.
We'll do something.